What is going on, everyone? This is Miles Dompier, and welcome to the 91st episode of Xbox Chaturdays. Today, I am stoked to be joined by the one and only, the infamous, the legendary Shpeshal Nick of XboxEra. Nick, how are you doing? I know it's about 5 a.m. your time, so how you feeling?
Yeah, it is. It's 5 a.m. here, so not gonna lie, I am a little bit tired, but I'm gonna do my best to bring my regular level of enthusiasm to things. My bigger concern's not me. My bigger concern is the three people asleep upstairs. But
Oh
we'll
yeah,
see
so
how we go.
everyone's tucked into their beds, you know. Nick and I have been working on
Yes,
this for a little bit, so I appreciate you working into your schedule. I appreciate you getting up before dawn. It's not even the crack of dawn. You're up before the sun. I
that's
appreciate
right.
you. If you are joining us live, make sure you send Nick all of your energy. Send Nick all of your love. He's being a trooper. He's hanging out. I'm excited to have you on. It's been a
Nice,
slower
thanks.
start to 2021, but we do have a bunch of stuff to talk about. There's a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of waiting and anticipation in the Xbox
Mm,
camp because where is Xbox? They weren't at the Game Awards. What is their plan for 2023? So we're going to be diving into that. We're going to be talking about the biggest game union and Microsoft embracing it. We're going to be
mm.
talking about Silent Hill 2. We're going to be talking about Starfield, Fable, Redfall. We're going to be talking about Xbox Game Pass coming soon, and so much more. But before we get into all of that, Nick, for the lovely people who maybe don't know, give us a quick breakdown of who you are, where they can find you, and why you love gaming.
Yeah, well, look, I'm gonna assume that there's a bit of overlap in our audiences. So I reckon most would know you can find me over on XboxEra.com. We've been doing our podcast for about 3.5 years now. Um, you know, I won't bore everyone with the story, but the short version is John and I were put in touch with each other from Forum Resetera. I was in the Discord. And we both had grand plans to start an Xbox podcast. So it just, someone put us in touch and it grew from there. But yeah, if you want to follow me, just head on over to xboxera.com and you'll find literally everything there. Our forum, all our news articles, reviews, even the podcast is housed there as well. But yeah, look, I'm going to assume most of you all know that, so I won't bore you with the details. Why I love gaming? God, I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that before.
Hitting you with a deep
Um,
question at first thing
yeah,
at 5
yeah.
a.m.
Why I love gaming? I guess the easiest way to answer it is that I mean, it's something I saw as a kid. I think I was like, I would have been about 4 years old, give or take. And despite how games looked back then, because they didn't look as nice and fancy as they do now, um, it's still, I think, just captured my imagination, even as a very young kid. Um, but that's probably the easiest way to answer it. Again, despite how crude games looked back then, just the big cabinets, because remember I was more of an arcade person. The big, huge, bright, loud cabinets in the arcades and all the people, it just, yeah, I don't know, I loved it, and that was it. I was hooked straight away.
Yeah, we kind of grew up
Rest of my life.
in a similar era, and yeah, part of it is just being a dumb kid and seeing bright lights and bright colors and saying,
Mm,
"Ooh, that looks fun," and then
yep,
part of it, and then hindsight, you kind of realize what it was about the mechanics and the principles of gaming that really sucked you in
mm,
and kept you playing. Because if it was just bright lights and shiny colors, like we would have moved on as we matured. But that's we're 20, 30 years later, we're still here talking about video games,
yep,
and so. Yeah, I always love hearing people's
yeah,
stories of like what got them into gaming. What was the moment, if there is one, where they said,
mm.
"All right, I'm in. I'm in for the long haul. Let's go."
Yeah, it was an interesting question. Like I've always been asked, like, I've always been asked why Sega or why Xbox, but no one's ever actually asked just why gaming at all. So it was actually a surprisingly not tough question, but yeah, it was interesting trying to answer that question because no one's ever asked it before.
Well, I'm glad. It's an introduction with every new guest on the show. I asked that question because I just like those stories. Some
Yeah.
housekeeping before we get into the meat of the show today. Xbox Chaturdays now has a Discord. So if you haven't joined that, there is a link in the description for the YouTube version, and there's going to be a link in the audio version as well if you want to hang out and chat after the show. If you want to drop burning questions, there's a new community Q&A section at the end of every episode where we pull questions straight from the Discord community. So if you want a question considered, join that, drop it in there. Some other stuff. Channel is inching so close to monetization, so super chats are going to be coming back very soon. In the interim, I've dropped a link in the chat if you want to have your question seen and heard and read by everyone. So thanks so much for all the support so far. We've only been doing this for a little over a month, and we're speed running that monetization process. So appreciate you. It's been great. All right, I think that's about it. Let's get into it, Nick, and let's start with
Let's go.
Bloober Team's anxiety surrounding Silent Hill 2. So, the Silent Hill saga, if you've been on the internet over the course of the last, 9 years? I don't know how long has it been since Silent Hills? 2014, 2015?
We're talking PT, yeah?
PT, yeah.
It's been a while. I missed that demo.
It was a great demo. It was a great moment. That everyone remembers that reveal, and everyone remembers how just excited and amped up they were for that reveal. So there was a reason there's been so much kind of cultish fandom surrounding Silent Hill. And then there's been the ongoing rumors that, Kojima's still involved. He's still doing it in some capacity. And then we had a big Silent Hill showcase saying, bam, here's 5 Silent Hill games that are coming out. And the most prominent of those was the remake of Silent Hill 2. One of the most, if not the most important.
You missed one step in all of that, though.
Oh, yeah?
And even as someone who's not into Silent Hill, you missed Abandoned. Remember, Abandoned was... that was a saga,
Nick, please, no.
in and of itself, remember? Like, Abandoned was also Kojima, and Abandoned was also secretly Silent Hills for a while, and that took on a life of its own. Very quickly.
That was fascinating to watch, and it kind of fed into that ravenous fandom surrounding Kojima and surrounding Silent Hill, and people just wanted to believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that maybe Abandoned was going to be Silent Hill, and it was going to be the PlayStation exclusive Silent Hill that was rumored. And as we know, that's a completely separate, disconnected thing.
That was insane.
It's been a hot mess.
Insane.
That was a moment. That was a fun saga to watch. I personally never bought into it being Silent Hill, but it was fun to go down the rabbit. I love a rabbit hole. I will go down a rabbit hole any day of the week, and I'll go deep. I will go off the map. I will go off the beaten trail. But I always keep a tether attached around my waist, keeping me grounded to reality, because I know at the end of the day, there's a strong chance that this is just weird coincidence, and it's us feeding into this idea and wanting it to be real. So Abandoned, yes, that definitely falls into the Silent Hill saga. But on the other side of things, we know Silent Hill 2 is real. We know Bloober Team is working on Silent Hill. And there's been a recent interview with the team, because as much as I like Bloober Team's projects, there's been a vocal contingent of people who don't. And there's been a lot of critics who are very concerned about Bloober Team being able to deliver. Silent Hill 2, as I touched on, one of the most important horror games ever. One of my favorite games ever. So even though I like Bloober Team, I still have, a very high bar that they're going to need to hit, because this game is very important to me. So let me touch on a couple quick quotes here about how Bloober Team feels about the pressure they're feeling, because they see the comments online. They know how a lot of people feel about Bloober Team, and their head of marketing and communications did an interview recently to shed some light on it. So here's how they're going to handle the stress of Silent Hill 2, and here's what they hope to deliver with Silent Hill 2. Some quotes. As for apprehension, yes, the pressure is high since we're dealing with one of the best psychological horror games ever made. We want to stick close to the original, and we will put it in the spotlight for years to come. We are focusing on bringing the distinct, visceral atmosphere back in the modernized Silent Hill 2. Longtime fans shouldn't worry about us, quote, missing the point while we're livening up the title. We faithfully stick to the traditional story canon while remaking the gameplay and updating the graphics from the ground up. These are the reasons why Konami entrusted us with the remake in the first place. All right, Nick, I'm curious to get your overall thoughts on Bloober Team. Before we discuss if they're going to be able to deliver on Silent Hill, going into this announcement, where were you at with Bloober Team? Yay, nay, middle of the road?
Yeah. No. As far as I know, they're a pretty good team. The medium was all right. What was it? Was it Layers of Fear
Yeah, they did
that they
Layers
did
of
as
Fear.
well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like they seem to horror. Obviously, appears to be their thing. I'd be surprised if they didn't request or seek out doing Silent Hill. And I feel like them picking the remake. So yeah, because God, there's so many Silent Hill projects. So Bloober's doing the Silent Hill. Oh, there's so many.
There's
It's
five,
like
at least five. There's at least five.
yeah, that we know of, that are official.
It's so much, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like if they've requested to do Silent Hill 2, to me, again, at least to me, that speaks to a certain level of, I guess, responsibility and maturity where they're like, okay, we want to show people that we can stay true to a classic Silent Hill game, like rather than trying to tackle something brand new straight away. So they just want to show people that they understand Silent Hill. That's how I'm interpreting it anyway. So from that perspective, I guess it's probably a good thing because I think most of their games have been pretty good. So
yeah, I understand the complaints and criticism that people have about Bloober. I'm not trying to downplay any of that because they haven't always gotten it right. They've been an independent horror studio, independently publishing. There's been some jank. There's been some low quality issues. There's been some story issues with stuff like the medium. So they haven't always gotten it right. But in my eyes, they've always shown this potential to be a contender for the AAA horror space. They've just never gotten the budget or the chance to be that. And so even before this was a rumor or confirmed, I have talked about how Bloober Team would be a good fit to kind of take the helm on a Silent Hill. They frequently cite Silent Hill 2. Many of the members of the team, that is the reason they make video games, is Silent Hill 2. So I know for them this is a huge deal, and I know for them this is a huge honor. And they talk about going to Tokyo. Basically, Konami reached out to some teams ahead of Tokyo Game Show 2019, a bunch of teams, and said, all right, give us your pitch. Give us your Silent Hill pitch. And so not only did Bloober Team have to contend with all of these other studios, they had to prove to Konami that they were the right pick. So it wasn't like they were just handed Silent Hill, which is what some people kind of feel like. They had to beat out other studios to get this project. And that makes me feel like they're in it for the right reasons. They want to do it right. And I hope they do. Again, I'm not going to be lenient on them if they don't get it right. Because this is one of my favorite games of all time. But do you think they're going to be able to deliver a Silent Hill 2 remake that lives up to the legacy of, as they state in their own quote, one of the best psychological horror games ever made?
I think so.
Okay.
Because they've also got the template that Resident Evil 2 has set. Well, I shouldn't say the template, but they've got that example there to sort of give them the blueprint to say, okay, everyone loved this, like universally loved this, and they would have. I would be surprised if they haven't dissected the ever loving crap out of Resident Evil 2, as a bit of inspiration, as a bit of a blueprint for how they should tackle Silent Hill. I reckon they'll do a good job. I still think, look, it's the internet, so you're still gonna have a vocal contingent that is just, they're probably just gonna hate this game no matter what, because Bloober's making it. But I think the majority will probably be happy with it.
Yeah, there are people who have just decided that they don't like Bloober, and that's that's fine. Everyone's
Yes,
entitled
and
to
that's it.
feel how they feel. I know the medium for a lot of people, the ending and the storied beats upset a lot of people, and I've heard the criticisms of that. So again, they're going to have to win those people over, and some of those people are going to be so extreme that they just don't care to even see what Bloober Team's doing, and that's totally up to them. But as a big fan of Silent Hill and as a big fan of AAA horror, which we're seeing a huge resurgence for, Dead Space remake this year, Resident Evil 4 remake this year. Some people are suspecting that maybe even Silent Hill 2 remake is going to land this year. There's a potential for 2023 to be this just glorious comeback year for horror, and I want it to be
Alan Wake.
Oh, yes, Alan Wake 2. How could I just started playing Alan Wake Remastered the last couple days.
Yeah, so have I.
Such a classic. Holds up so well. So stoked for that. So this year has such a huge potential to bring everyone back into horror in a big way. And I want Bloober Team to land it. I really, really do, because I've rooted for them. Despite their flaws, despite some of the criticism, I've rooted for that team, and I want to see them nail this. I want to see them come out of the gate and deliver just an unquestionable horror banger. And again, if you're using the template of Silent Hill 2, I mean, that seems like a home run set up on a tee. Like, you can, if they mess that up,
that's right.
then I think it's fair for anyone who was skeptical to just write them off at that point, because I mean,
sure.
Come on now. The template is there. It's solid. Just deliver on that and we'll be beautiful. We'll be golden.
Well, you've got both templates. Obviously, you're building on the existing game, but as I mentioned earlier, Resident Evil 2 and how that was done. Now, I'm not suggesting they should do it exactly like Resident Evil and almost like Resident Evil 2. Anyone who's played the original and the new one is, for all intents and purposes, a new game.
Yes, it really is.
For all intents and purposes. But at the same time, they did still manage to capture the core of what that original Resident Evil 2 was, which isn't easy to do when you're effectively reimagining such a classic game. So I'll be interested to see how they do it. Like, do they go the Resident Evil 2 route? Do they stick more closely to the framework of the original game? It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, it's what's beautiful about Resident Evil 2 Remake is it felt like what I imagined playing it as a kid. Like, when you played PlayStation 1 games, there was a suspension of disbelief, and you filled in a lot of the gaps with your imagination. And sure, you go back and you look at the graphics now, and you're like, wow, that's how am I supposed to take this game seriously? But back in the day, that was intense. That was horrifying, and a lot of it was us filling in the imagination. And then Resident Evil 2 Remake hits, and it's basically how I envision the game in my head, but in reality. And that's the power, I think, of some of these remakes. And I know people are tired of remakes, and I get that. I definitely do. We all want new IPs. That is the most exciting thing in gaming for the most part. But that being said, there is something special about finding a way to rekindle and respark that magic of something we loved. And again, Capcom has nailed it. Capcom has set the gold standard for remakes. And so anyone else coming in, your Dead Spaces, your Silent Hills, you got to compete with that. You got to compete with a game that came out. Resident Evil 2 was already one of my favorite games of all time, and they superseded it in every single possible way. Came out of the gate with a remake that ended up being like my game of the year, I think, that year. It was it was really good. So
they did have a big advantage though, because of the gap between the original and the remake. Like, so Dead Space now. Dead Space, I guess, is at a disadvantage because Dead Space is already a fairly modern game. So Resident Evil 2 is building off a game that was fixed camera, tank controls, polygons with no textures. So that, I guess, even though as horrible as all that sounds to us now, but the team making Resident Evil 2, that's actually a big advantage because there's so much change they can make. Dead Space is a newer game, so really the majority of those upgrades are going to be visual more than anything else.
Exactly.
So,
Silent Hill 2 is right on the edge, right on the cusp, where it could have legitimate, meaningful upgrades to gameplay that really change the experience.
Because that's still similar in style to Resident Evil 2 in fixed camera.
Fixed camera, yep.
Yeah, and that was a PlayStation 2 game?
It came out on PlayStation 2 first and then Xbox later, if I remember right. It might have been simultaneous, but yeah, it definitely was on Xbox and PS2. I get one quick question before we move on from this topic here. Exclusivity of Silent Hill 2 has been a topic because it's come out that it's a PS5 exclusive for 12 months. We've also had people write editorials saying that this is going to be a PS5 exclusive forever, and because of Microsoft's statements to the FTC. My question is, if it's launching on PS5 and PC as a 12-month exclusive, is it not coming to Xbox? What else would be, if it's a current gen only game? It's not coming to Switch. What else is what's the 12-month exclusivity then? Are you in the camp that this will never come to Xbox?
Yeah, it's Sony has had a habit in the past of like perpetually extending exclusivity agreements. Like look at Final Fantasy VII Remake. And I feel like, I know Silent Hill 2 did come to the OG Xbox, but it's still a game that's always associated heavily with PlayStation.
Yeah, they even in the Silent Hill showcase, the team came out on stage and talked about that, the legacy of Silent Hill and PlayStation. So clearly a lot of that team feels the same way.
Yeah, so even though at the moment they say 12 months, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a Final Fantasy VII remake situation. But I guess the question I'll ask, because I don't actually know the answer, all those other Silent Hill games that were announced, are any of them coming to Xbox?
Yes. What's the narrative ones? Townfall? And then I don't think they've released platforms for Silent Hill F, whatever that one is. But yeah, it's going to be this weird mix where some of them are just multi-platform across the board, and then Silent Hill 2 is going to be an exclusive only.
And that's the part that makes me think it'll probably still come to Xbox eventually. Because it's just, I don't know, it's a bad look. I mean, look how much people side-eye Square because their release schedule is just so schizophrenic, and we'll support Xbox here but not here, we'll put this on Game Pass but not this, we'll do like
it's all over the place. And going into this, I knew Konami was gonna pick the choice that gave them the most money out of the gate. Konami, a lot, if you look at the projects, even though they're doing five Silent Hill projects, they were all very smart with the budgets. None of these teams are what you would consider like the biggest, and none of these budgets are going to be the biggest ever. So when you have someone like PlayStation who comes to you and says, yeah, we'll pay for publishing if you give us some exclusivity, Konami's going to be like, sure. But Konami also wants to make money. So if there's a potential for 12 months down the road to port this to other platforms and make more money, Konami's going to do that first and foremost. Most Konami's portfolio has been multi-platform for a long time. Yeah. And hopefully moving forward, they kind of lean into that. But as PlayStation is looking to fill gaps for its first party, because it's going to have a lot of first party gaps, they need stuff like Silent Hill to tide over people who bought a PS5 for the exclusives, if you will.
Yeah.
All right, huge shout out to everyone who's joining us live. I see Randall Thor 19 in the chat. I see Yodani. I see Mr. Joanna Dark. A lot of amazing returning faces. If you're here hanging out, appreciate you. Hit that like button. Share it out. If you are new, if this is your first time tuning in, be sure to subscribe. We are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to get to some super chats in the interim. First up, Yodani says, I recently had a friend over and he seemed impressed by my Halo collection. What are y'all's favorite gaming collectibles? Bonus if you can show them on camera. Oh, damn. You got a collectible you can... I'm trying to think if I got one I can grab off.
Yeah, I know. I've sold so much over the last couple of years. What have I got? Yeah, I think I'm going to go grab something too if I can access it. Hold on.
All right, so this one is going to be... It's going to be a twofer, and hopefully we can see it well. So this is my Necronomicon that came with the special edition of Evil Dead the game. And so you're thinking, yeah, cool, it's like bound in human flesh. But then they actually went through and did a bunch of like blood art across all of it. So it's just every single page has got original artwork. Oh, mama, this thing's a beauty. Oh, she's a beauty. So that would probably be right now my current favorite gaming collectible. I do have a bunch. You can see my big old Bulbasaur back there. I got the Dark Souls Dark Sigil underneath the light in the background. There's a lot of good stuff here. But I put
God, I don't. I've got so much. And again, I've sold a lot. I don't know if I could even think. Like the only thing I could actually reach right now without making a whole ton of noise. I used to be. I'm not anymore, but I used to be a massive Zelda console collector. So if Nintendo ever made a Zelda console, I was there. And I've seen those leaked pictures of that Zelda OLED Switch.
Yeah,
Which
buddy.
I'm already starting to make room for. But the only thing I could grab right now was my Majora's Mask.
Ooh, that's.
Yeah. So I had the 25th anniversary 3DS, which I've sold. I had another Zelda, I think, was it the Link Between Worlds?
Yeah, that was like
That
the
was on
pure gold
3DS.
one. The pure gold one, right?
Had that one as well. But this one
Yeah.
I've kept. The Majora's Mask one I've kept.
Ooh.
Yeah. I love anything Zelda. I've got the Skyward Sword Joy-Cons. I've got all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I'm a sucker
yeah.
for a lot of the Nintendo Special Edition consoles as well.
They're so good.
Especially the DS era. I was bad. I was buying so many of them. It was out of control.
Oh,
This time around, I've stopped
I've had
myself on the Switch side. I'm not
Yeah.
buying as many, but DS, dude. Ooh, I had the NES Special Edition. I had the Pikachu Special Edition. There were so many that came out.
So did I.
these
I had the Pikachu one as well.
Okay. Well, sweet. That was a fun one. I'm glad we got to stand up, get interactive on the show. Another one from Mr. Joanna Dark, who says, "Hello to my dude Miles, the goat Dompier. Question for Nick. Oh God, have you played Resident Evil Code Veronica? If so, what are
Yes.
your thoughts? Should Capcom remake the game? Since it's a 94
Yes.
Metacritic banger, Miles is a fan. LOL.
You hate it? You don't like Code Veronica?
It's not one of my favorites. Listen, I love Resident Evil, so even the worst Resident Evils I have played, I enjoy. I will play again. If they do a remake of Code Veronica, I'll be there day one. I just think it's one of the worst stories Resident Evil's ever done, and that's saying something. Because even as someone who, appreciates campy horror, appreciates corny, the cheesiest horror possible, and Resident Evil's always leaned into that. It's Mr. Joanna Dark. It's his thing. He baits me every chance he gets, because infamously, Resident Evil 0 and Code Veronica for me at the bottom of the list. Resident Evil 0 is below Code Veronica, but Code Veronica is just above that in terms of like the mainline-ish entries. All right, I put Resident Evil 6 above Code Veronica just to let you know how I feel about Code Veronica.
See, no, my memories of Code Veronica are very fond. Like, I've still got it on Dreamcast, and that's where I remember playing it first. It's weird. Resident Evil Code Veronica is weird because I have super, super vivid memories of playing it, and I don't know why.
It had some of the coolest monsters. I'll give it that. They went ham with weird creatures, which made it fun.
Yeah. But I remember liking it, and it's definitely not at the bottom of my Resident Evil list. That's probably, of the ones I've played, Resident Evil 3.
Oh,
probably
controversial.
at the bottom of my list.
Woo, woo.
I hated 3. Resident Evil 3 is the game that spawned my hatred for stalker mechanics. It was just something I was never a big fan on, just having this bad guy that's constantly stalking you throughout the entire game. And I will say it sort of upset me a little bit when Resident Evil 2 Remake had Mr. X just there. I mean, he wasn't like super obnoxious, but
he was there.
Yeah,
he was there, baby. Yeah.
Oh, once he was there, but yeah. No, I like Code Veronica. I'd love for them to
I
remake
would
that.
love a
I
remake
like it.
because maybe then it could be good. Zing! Moving on. All right. All right, Nick W. Let's get to this one real quick before we dive into the next topic. Nick W. with Super Chat says, what game do you think has the best cover art and what has the worst cover art? Oh, I saw little Danny Pena post this on Twitter earlier today. Best cover art of all time and worst cover art of all time.
Best cover art.
If Rand is still in here, I'm trying to think of the game. We did the... we ranked all of the OG Xbox games recently.
Yes, I watched that
on this channel.
Yeah,
and that was filled with some of the worst cover art ever.
Yes,
worst cover art. Furious Carding. I think that's it. That'll be my pick for the worst cover art ever. Best cover art ever. That's hard. That's hard.
I mean, how far back do you want to go? Like there was a game I had as a kid on Mega Drive called Kaji Kai, which had really bad box art, but all games did back then. This is the thing. Like, I feel like picking the worst box art is almost harder than picking the best box art because the 80s and 90s were literally filled with nothing but terrible box art.
It was a magical time, dude. Mega Man. Go look at some of the OG Mega Man box art.
I was just about to say the original Mega Man had shocking box art. There are games on Super Nintendo in particular that have box art that don't even relate to anything in the game.
Yeah. Yep.
It's just you could do an entire show dedicated to just analyzing terrible box art. By like modern games are much better about box art now. But God, I don't know.
I have to say,
honestly,
Breath of the Wild is one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
I love stuff that's the cliche is you have the character front and center, which obviously, and then you have meaningless stuff kind of in the background that vaguely allude to what the game is. That's like 95% of all box art is that, and I like that.
Yeah,
Breath of the Wild found a way to like have Link front and center, but also incorporate a beautiful shot of what you can expect from the world in the game. So that's the one that comes to mind off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you said Breath of the Wild because I was gonna, for some reason, Ocarina of Time popped into my head.
Yeah.
Even though the box art is nothing more than the logo, it's still
just iconic.
A box art. Yeah, that's right. Goldeneye. Goldeneye is an amazing box art. It's just, I mean, it's effectively just the spin on the movie poster. But
while we're on Goldeneye, while I have you here, we got to talk. I had a lot of people ping me on Twitter and say, all right, you got Nick on. Make sure you ask him about Goldeneye. So while we're on the show here,
to me everywhere I go,
you were the #1 Goldeneye fan. You were the #1 Goldeneye stan. You've
and yet shouting that account, that documentary account still doesn't follow me. I went through that documentary's follow list to see who it follows, and I'm like, man, you're following like just absolute randoms, and you don't follow me, the person that's like standing this game harder than anyone. It's like, come on, you serious?
When are you expecting it? When is it hitting? Because they said it was coming soon, and we were all like, oh, that means within a couple weeks, right? No, it doesn't mean it's been at least a month, 2 months, maybe. When was that?
No, I think it's been 4. I think it's been 4 months.
Oh my God, it's been that long. Oh,
it's been ages.
So Soon is doing some heavy lifting in that announcement. Coming soon.
They were playing it very fast and very loose. Yeah, well, originally I'd heard it should be by December. Then I was told. Actually, no, sorry. Originally, I had been told the latest it should be by probably Q2 this year. Like latest, but most likely much earlier. Then I got DMs in December saying, oh, we might be getting it. It might be the December game. And then I reached out to a few people. Jeff Grubb was hearing some things as well. So I'm like, oh, grouse. It'll be, because remember how they sort of announced the second half of December was very weird with Game Pass.
There
They
was no
didn't.
second half announcement for Game Pass.
Yeah, and like people were sort of waiting, and then Nintendo took a while to announce what was happening with NSO, which made everyone think, okay, this is it. This is when it's going to be GoldenEye, and then nothing. So yeah, I don't know. I like, what are they waiting for? Like, it's clearly ready. It's not like they're still developing it. Like the game is clearly ready, and Nintendo has. Because I did get a message saying I think Nintendo has pushed it out further, which again to me makes sense only because I know Nintendo. Not only is Nintendo very weird about GoldenEye, there's a story I would love to tell that I'm not allowed to tell by a friend of both of ours. But so not only has Nintendo been very weird about GoldenEye, there's just I don't know. It's weird. There's this such a sordid history attached to this game, and I don't know what Nintendo is waiting for. Nintendo has that history of just randomly holding on to stuff just because they can. They just stuff's ready, but they just decide they're going to hold on to it a little bit longer.
It's kind of
And
the
it
Disney
looks
approach with when they were doing the vault thing. When movies would come in
yes,
and out of the vault, and ooh, it's back out of. Why was it in the vault? Why didn't you just have this available, like for
it's
everyone to
so
buy?
weird.
And again, they like
It's
Nintendo's legacy, so they have that weird mentality where you got to build up false demand basically by purposely limiting how you can get it. They did it with the Mario collection. Oh, you can only buy that for a couple months.
mm,
Just what? What are you doing? Why on earth would you do that?
they did it with Amiibo.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they literally withheld Amiibo and they kept stock low to create the insatiable demand for it. Like, and I mean, I get it. Like, their theory is technically correct. As soon as they flooded stores with Amiibo, no one was really that interested in Amiibo anymore. So it's an
Hmm.
old school tactic, and it technically works. But
It does work. It does, and that's why they do it, because they know. As we saw, people went on Twitter and they yelled about the Mario collection being limited time, but it was the number one selling
mm,
game on Amazon. So they know what they're
yeah,
doing. They know how to play
yeah,
that long con, and they know with those IP they can swing that around, baby. But with GoldenEye, yeah,
mm,
where the hell is it? I imagine Xbox is beholden to Nintendo in this, and they have to wait for Nintendo to
yes.
release it, and that's why it's kind of just up in the air. So
Yeah, it's such a weird sorted history with GoldenEye and where it sits, and like for a while there, everyone thought Activision was involved. Um,
no, I
even
don't
I
think
did.
that's the case.
Oh, they're not. But even I thought Activision was involved, and then I thought Danjak, which is the company that oversees Bond in all media. I thought that they were a massive part of the problem, and it kind of just turns out it was all Nintendo all along. Like I would just,
You know, you love them, but they are sometimes a little bit. They get
oh,
in
they're
their own
just
way. They
weird.
get in their own way, and they know
It's
how
just,
to
I don't know,
rile
like,
people up.
yeah, and so I guess knowing how Nintendo works, I don't know, because it's easy to say, "Don't you want our money?" But I don't. They're not selling GoldenEye.
Exactly, it's
GoldenEye
just
will be
part of the
part of
online subscription.
NSO.
And Xbox also
Microsoft will
isn't
be
selling GoldenEye either. It's part of Rare Replay, so they're not selling GoldenEye. Nobody's
they're not going to
selling
sell it
GoldenEye.
individually,
No, it's only it's going to be in Game Pass. You can download it
yes,
via Game Pass, but it's coming
and
to
Rare
Rare
Replay.
Replay. And Rare Replay lets you download games individually. So nobody is selling GoldenEye is the weirdest thing about this entire saga. You can't buy it. It's just, you,
So
you either have to buy Rare Replay and you get it for free technically, or you have to subscribe to Game Pass or Nintendo Switch Online.
yeah,
It's weird.
so if no one's making any real money out of it, then what's the holdup?
That's what
It's
everyone's
so
wondering. That's what
weird.
everyone is wondering, and hopefully we get a resolution to that soon. At this point, I feel like we're gonna get a random blog post on a Thursday, but yeah, here,
It
GoldenEye's
will.
out.
It'll just come out
There
of
you go.
nowhere. Yep.
It's up.
No
Have fun.
fanfare.
Yeah.
I'll just be like, we'll wake up one day and someone will post the photo on Twitter saying, "Yes, GoldenEye," and then we'll be like, "What?
What?
Like, what are you talking about?"
Okay. Let's move on to our next topic here. we're going to be diving later on in the show. We're going to be talking about Xbox's plans for 2023, Starfield, Redfall, Fable, all of that. So if you're excited for that, stick around. But there's one thing I wanted to touch on first that was kind of a exciting and interesting development surrounding game developers in the video game industry, and that was Microsoft's first union has been formed by over 300 Bethesda workers. And so last year, they announced that this was happening. A bunch of Bethesda workers, a lot of them in the QA team, came together and said, hey, we want to form a union. And then we had PR beats from people like Reggie of Nintendo, ex-Nintendo, and Phil talk about this and say, yeah, we're not going to get in the way. If people want to form a union, that's the right call. We're going to support that. We're going to embrace that. And then a lot of people were wondering, okay, well, when push comes to shove and when this becomes a reality, because we've seen Activision, we've seen Blizzard actively push back, actively try to stifle union activity. They don't want unions, is basically what it boils down to. And Microsoft is a huge company. And so you would think, they would lean into the typical, well, our compensation package is blah, 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 corporate speak about why you don't need a union. Union's not good for you. It's bad. Microsoft, in this case, with this union, they have let it come through. They have embraced it. They have welcomed it. They put out a post online saying, that they essentially welcome this deal. And that's important. This is the biggest union ever for games. And I want to read a couple quotes about why this is important and why people are excited about this. Because I think there's a lot of, misconceptions on both sides about why you need a union and what a union does. So here are some quotes on, why this is a big deal and why they are excited. So this is from senior QA tester Victoria Bonos. Before us is an opportunity to make big changes and bring equity to the video games industry. We want to put an end to sudden periods of crunch, unfair pay, and lack of growth opportunities within the company. Our union will push for truly competitive pay, better communication between management and workers, a clear path for those who want to progress in their career, and more. And then according to senior QA tester Dylan Burton, here's why this particular win, this recent development is a big deal. It's difficult to express in words just how much winning our union matters to us. We've been working so hard to get here that it would be impossible not to be excited. We know this is not the end of our hard work, but reaching this milestone gives us faith that when workers stand together, we can accomplish anything we set our minds to. So how are you feeling about all these developments? I know there's been so much drama given the Activision Blizzard deal and what this means for workers, and a lot of people are pushing back against crunch. How are you feeling about this development and Microsoft kind of letting this massive union happen?
It's great. I know, look, as an Australian, unions are no new thing down here. They're all over the shop. Where I work has a very big, very strong union. Unions, don't get me wrong, I've seen online a lot of people sort of taking that dodgy union stance.
Yeah, unions can be bad. And historically, sure, there have been unions that have exploited people's income. But
yes. But on the whole, unions are a good thing, especially in an industry like video games where employee exploitation has been such a problem for such a long time. Now, the irony of this is that Microsoft's probably one of the best employers in the US, as far as I know.
They're one of the top ranked. I think they were number one of the top 10 places to work in the US. So, yeah.
Yeah. Microsoft, places like Microsoft and Apple probably, I shouldn't say have no need for a union, just probably have less of a need for a union as opposed to other places. Because remember, places like Microsoft and Apple aren't just video game companies. Yeah, they're tech giants. Like Xbox is such a small part of what makes Microsoft. The ones that probably need a union more are your dedicated big developers and publishers like ABK. But what's important about this is that, yes, it's only 300 and all that sort of stuff, but it's a first step towards normalizing unions within the gaming industry. Like if this union leads to Microsoft sort of I shouldn't say poaching staff, but if if this union is a step towards Microsoft sort of becoming a destination workplace for developers, for QA testers, then slowly others will follow suit and say, well, hold on, the union is a big reason we're losing staff to Microsoft, and why Microsoft is gaining staff. Maybe we need to look into this as well. And in the end, you should be wanting better treatment of developers. Like, I don't know how much simpler it can be than that, really.
Like, we need to start looking out for each other. When I say each other, I mean the average person who isn't running a company, because there's so many people, like you said, that are being exploited every single day. And it would have been easy for Microsoft to say, hey, wait a second, we're the #1 rated place to work in the US. We don't need a union. There's no reason for it. And use that, and other companies would have, and they would have said, no, we don't need it because we're the best place to work. Microsoft is setting a great example, and I think that's hugely important. Even if it's not needed for Microsoft as a company, if you have people working under your banner who feel that they need that representation and they need that bargaining tool, you shouldn't get in the way of that. And that at the very minimum, that should be the stance of any company, is you shouldn't get in the way of it. If you're actively going out of your way to union bust and stuff like that, that's where I have a problem. Because clearly you are not doing better for your employees, and you don't actively want to do better for your employees. And so that's why this is a big deal, because, you know, people go into the industry for almost 100% of the time the right reason. They're passionate. They love it. And that passion can and will be exploited. And you'll be made to feel like you could be doing more, you're not doing enough. And they'll use that passion to make you happier with less. And it's not that you don't deserve more, it's that, you know, there's a lot of people who would be willing to do it for less. And that's true. There's a lot of people who would be. And it's just this constant vicious cycle of exploitation where so-and-so does this, and then so-and-so will do it cheaper, and so-and-so will do it cheaper. And then eventually the value of all of our work and all of our energy is nothing. And that's, unfortunately, where a lot of these companies want to be, because then it boosts the bottom line. And they can just say, all right, we're going to use and abuse you, move on to the next person, suck the soul out of them, and move to the next. And that's, you know, maybe a little hyperbolic, but...
Well, it's not, because what it is that the video game industry has a history of preying on people's love of video games effectively. Like, they know, like, video game publishers and developers know that there's no shortage of people wanting to get into the video game industry. And they use that and they weaponize it. And that's how we are where we are in terms of how developers are treated. So, yeah, well, I mean, look, I'm sure there's people that'll put the tinfoil hat on about why Microsoft are doing it. And they'll probably say, oh, they want to get ABK through. So this is a nice way of showing regulators that, look, despite being the market leader in as a workplace, as a work environment, we're still acknowledging this union. I can understand some people would probably like to take that angle and say this is the only reason they're doing it. But again, this is Bethesda. It's not ABK anyway. I know Raven as a studio also wanted to unionize.
Yes,
or at
yes.
least
I think the
QA
Raven
testers within
QA
Raven.
testers did as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, look, it's an important step, regardless of whether Microsoft's intentions were ulterior or good or whatever. It's still an important first step for the industry, and hopefully others follow suit, because a lot of the mistreatment we hear about in the video game industry is coming from these big publishers. Not that the small developers are immune to it, but a lot of the stories we hear are from the big publishers. So when one of the biggest takes this step, hopefully that's just the first domino to fall amongst many. Hopefully.
Exactly. And that's kind of the beauty of this situation, is that really it's just a stepping stone for a better leveraging position for developers in the video games industry, people working in the video games industry. And I think that's cool. And I think Microsoft being as big as they are and being as well respected as they are, regardless of how you feel about Microsoft and how it handles that, I think that is really, really important. And I'm excited to see it. And I think it
Yeah.
was a big deal across the board. And hopefully this means as we look towards what's next for the video games industry, that things become a little more stabilized and normalized for them. So shout out to
Yep.
that. Shout out to that team, and shout out to Microsoft for not actively trying to shut that down.
Yeah.
Next up, Nick, we got to talk about Xbox Game Pass. You touched on this a little bit at the start. Xbox Game Pass coming soon is coming soon, according to Microsoft. So typically at the start of every month, we get a little blog detailing all the games that are going to be heading to Xbox Game Pass for any given month. Usually we get 2. As you touched on earlier, we didn't get one for the back half of December, and we haven't gotten one for January yet. We went an entire week into January, and we got no coming soon announcement. So a lot of people are speculating and questioning what this all means for Microsoft and what's going on with Game Pass, because we've had Stranded Deep Shadow Drop. That at least got a tweet. They at least said, hey, Stranded Deep is out. And then Mortal Shell Enhanced Edition dropped. That didn't get anything. That came back. With all the returning game with all the DLC, with the Xbox Series X and S enhancements. But a lot of people are wondering what's going on. So what is going on? Why did Microsoft skip this week? We know stuff like Persona's coming. We know stuff like Monster Hunter Rise is coming. But there are a lot of games that, as we know now, Mortal Shell, Stranded Deep, and then people are getting push notifications that Shadow Warrior 3 might be dropping in the service as well. What do you think was the approach here, or the goal with skipping this first week?
Okay, well, I'm going to say this kind of relates to our last topic, because we're talking about treatment of employees, and I feel this might be simpler than people are. Like, in the video game industry, we love a good conspiracy theory. We seem to like the cloak and dagger of it all. And I think we look for stuff that's probably not there. Those of you looking at Twitter should also be noticing a lot of Xbox employees tweeting about returning to work from time off. It's probably that simple. It's probably just everyone's been on leave and they're all just slowly making their way back to work, which is why you're getting this sporadic sort of just, oh, here's this, here's this, here's this. And to inject a little story in here, on the topic of the second half of December. So many will know I have a Discord. I have a lot of Xbox staff in that Discord. And someone asked Megan McGame Pass a question about the second half of December, which she answered. And then somehow that ended up being screenshotted and leaked onto the internet. So, yeah, maybe they're just, I don't know, somehow that became news and it spread like wildfire, and that came from my Discord, that screenshot that everyone saw. I think it's just, I think this is very simple. I think this is just a case of people are on leave and they haven't come back. They're slowly making their way back. I don't think it's anything more complicated than that. I could be wrong. But just based on all the tweets I'm seeing from Xbox staff, to me, it just looks like people making their way back to work.
Yes, and I think that really is a big component of this. Because, again, I also have talked to a lot of people behind the scenes, just casually. And I know, I'm not going to say names or who this is, but I know some people weren't even back from the Game Pass team until like middle of this week. So,
yeah.
Part of it, I think, really is just them easing back into the flow of work. A lot of people were off for the holidays. I know a lot of Xbox in general is pretty much off for the back half of December. So they're probably easing back in, making sure that all their ducks are in a row before they announce it. Because with stuff like this, it has to be very formal, has to be very official. It's got to be vetted by all the right people. So I think that is a big part of it.
So I'm seeing in the chat now, I want to address this. So I'm seeing in the chat, Dear Soman, okay, but that didn't happen last year. Okay, I didn't take leave in January last year. But this year I've taken the entirety of January off, which is why I'm here on this show right now. I traditionally haven't taken January's off, but this year I have. Again, like we're still. I know we all love our video games, and to us, video games are the most important thing on earth. But in the end, we're still ultimately talking about workplaces. So anyone who's worked in a big organization will know some people take leave, some people don't. But maybe the key person behind organizing the Game Pass stuff is on leave this year and wasn't last year. It's again, I don't think I don't think it's any deeper than that. Personally, again, I could be very wrong, but I don't think it's much deeper than that.
All
It's
right, well,
just
let's talk about the flip side here, because with all of this, we talked about putting on tinfoil hats earlier. So grab those tinfoil hats, strap in, because there have been a lot of theories about what this all means. This isn't Microsoft easing back in from the holidays. This is part of a grand master plan, if you will, to kick off 2023 bigger and harder than ever before. They're quiet for a reason. It's the calm before the storm, Nick. So I want to talk about the theory that the reason that they haven't announced Xbox games yet, the Xbox Game Pass games for January, is because next Tuesday, the 10th, they're doing the Xbox Games Showcase to
where
kick
did
off.
Tuesday come from? Where
I
did
don't-
this Tuesday thing come from?
I don't know. I'm not saying it's a credible rumor by any means, but I'm just saying a lot of people are buying into this idea that next Tuesday they're dropping the games, and it's not going to be a blog post. It's going to be their first Xbox Direct style showcase. So joking aside, let's talk about the rumored showcase as a whole.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because there's been a lot of conversations around that. There's been a lot of energy because, as we all know, at the Game Awards this year, Microsoft was quiet and they did not really have anything to say outside of a few ads. Microsoft was very quiet, and then immediately afterwards, a bunch of people from Xbox were like, "You won't have to wait long. Don't worry. We have big plans. We have a lot of stuff to show." And so that's fed into the rumors. We had one of the folks from the video production team put out a tweet talking about the new studio. That's fed into the rumors. So there's a lot of rumors that January, the start of 2023.
And I'm hearing Cult. I'm hearing in the chat that apparently Cult started the whole Tuesday thing.
Oh, okay. It came from Colt.
See, I got so confused because I mean, anyone who follows me on Twitter knows that I don't just post about video games. I post a lot of random crap. And I saw a tweet from that. Have you seen that account, No Context Brits?
Yes, I have.
Have you seen that account? So that account was just tweeting, "What's your favorite word in English language?" Now, me being Australian, I immediately went to the C word that Americans hate with a passion, and I spelled it out. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to be revealing something about myself here, but I used to watch Sex in the City.
Hey, no shame here, bro. The all-time American classic.
Yeah. I used to watch Sex in the City, and I remember this really clever way that Charlotte described the C word, which was "see you next Tuesday." So anyone that watches the Xbox Era podcast will hear me say that a lot. And so I was replying to that No Context Brits Twitter account saying, "See you next Tuesday," to say that word. And people were like, "Oh, the Xbox Showcase next Tuesday." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about." They're like, yeah, right. You know exactly what we're talking about." I'm like, seriously, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was just trying to very politely and kindly for the American audiences say, "See you next Tuesday," the C word that you all hate so much. And that's when I started to look into it and realize that people were talking about an alleged Tuesday Xbox Showcase. So for the record, for those of you thinking I was like cleverly teasing, I was not. I have no idea.
Yeah, according to Assassin in the chat, this came from Colt, and he said, "Pay attention on the 10th. Pay attention on the 10th." So, I mean, we're going to talk about the rumor. We're going to talk about this showcase because, yeah, like we said, this theory has been running wild, and a lot of people have said, you know, they're going to start the week, they're going to start January with it, and then we've had people say, well, maybe at the end of January, early February is when they're going to lean into it, and maybe they'll announce it this month and build up anticipation for that showcase. So,
Yes.
I'll just ask you, do you think Xbox will deliver a showcase of some kind in the month of January? Do you think they're going to set the tone of the year in the first month?
I don't know if it'll be in January. I know our friend Jeff Grubb and I were talking about this on the Christmas episode. He had heard Jan-Feb. I had heard Q1. All I had been told was sometime in Q1 there'll be a show, with no specific month or anything. So again, if I just talk about what I've been told, I haven't heard January specifically, but Q1 includes January. So it seems like there's a lot of smoke. So I guess if everyone's hearing January, maybe at the very least, the announce of the show seems like it's going to be January. Whether the show itself will be, I don't know. Like I wonder if Microsoft is starting to play into the cat and mouse now that they never have in the past. Like, it's been a while since Sony's had a show. And I know they were at CES, but it's actually been a fair while since Sony's had one. So I'm like, are they waiting? Are they waiting for Sony's one?
See, that's everyone assumes all of these companies are just constantly playing 4D chess behind the scenes.
Yes.
That there's all this back and
they
forth.
do a little bit.
They do a little bit.
They do a little bit.
They do a little bit. My
Some lean into it more than others. Sony, I feel, leans into the 4D chess stuff more than Microsoft and Nintendo does. But they all do it a little bit.
I'll tell you what I wanted and what I hope for this showcase, and then I'll tell you kind of how I think it could actually play out. So what I was hoping from Microsoft in the start of this year was to come out of the gate, set the tone, have some sort of showcase or some sort of announcement that gave people a look at what they can expect from Xbox this year, whether it's an infographic, whether it's a video showcase talking about the games you'll be playing. I wanted them to come out and set the tone of when people can expect to play the games coming to Xbox, because that's been a big criticism for them. They skipped the Game Awards, which was an opportunity to let people know what's coming early. We know Redfall's coming soonish. We know Starfield's coming soonish. We'll talk more about those, but we know games are coming soonish, and we don't know when they're coming. So everything kind of falls into soon. And we are in this weird world where, with this pushback on crunch and with this, need and desire to treat employees better, that makes release dates hard, really, really hard to do, because on paper, yeah, this sounds good. Let's slap it out there. Let's see what happens. But as we know, if they delay that, people get upset. You have to remarket it. There's all this other marketing, especially with a huge game. You looked at Halo. Halo had all of these like chips and all these other branded things tied into it. And there's all this money and momentum and weight tied to that. And then you have to be like, well, you can put the Doritos out, but we're not going to have Halo. You can put the Halo Infinite Rockstars and Doritos out, but the game's not going to be out. Sorry. And then you have Doritos and Rockstar being like, yo, what the hell? We kept up our end of the bargain. What's going on? And that's boring corporate marketing, but that's just the reality of the weight of games that big. And so they are at this kind of impasse where they're trying to balance all of that. So that's what I want. A showcase in January would be such a huge way to, get correct some of the fans who are, upset, annoyed, frustrated by the lack of announcements, frustrated by the lack of games, because it's no surprise that people are not happy with 2022 from Xbox. It was very light. It was very disappointing in a lot of ways. And so for them to be silent in December and then for them to be silent in the start of January, from just a gamer perspective, I understand. Again, I emphasize the human element is probably the reason that things aren't, bam, day one, here you go. Here's our entire slate. That being said, if I'm being realistic here, I don't know that we're going to get one in January. I don't know if we're going to have that showcase because, let's say, I believe it was Todd, who was one of the folks involved with the Xbox video side. He put out that tweet saying, here's the new studio. If the studio was just set up in the middle of December, beginning of December, middle of December, chances are they probably haven't recorded in it if most of the team is off. And
Yeah,
so
that's right.
my thought is maybe they're using January to record this showcase, and then I'm in the camp that we probably will get some kind of announcement for a show, but I don't know definitively that we're going to have a show in January. And if we do, I imagine it will be later on in January to give them time to make sure that this hits in the right way. So that's, what I want and kind of how I think it's going to play out in terms of a show.
And Microsoft is no stranger to having shows close to E3. Like they've had them in May before, they've had console reveals in May. So if Jeff and I are both hearing sometime Q1, the show itself could be March, could be late March. And they're using, like Miles alluded to, Jan and even Feb to prep it and get things ready and settled. Yep, let's have release dates for this. Like, it all depends on the structure the show's going to take. Like, I keep seeing people reference this. Oh, they're only going to go 12 months ahead. I don't think that was a signed mandate that they said that they were going to follow for the rest of time. I think that was just for that.
The reason they did that
show
is because going into that show, people were like, yo, Xbox has no games coming out. Xbox has nothing coming out. So they had to get on stage and say, this is everything coming in 12 months. Because going into that show, there was a lot of negative energy in PR saying that Xbox, quote, has no games. Xbox has nothing coming in 2022. And they had to get on stage and say, no, that's not true. Here's what we have. So again, I'm with you. I don't think the 12-month thing is going to be how they do every show moving forward.
No, I don't think so at all. I still think E3 will forever be the crown jewel. But for better or worse, whether you agree or not, it looks like E3 will always be the one that you should always look forward to the most. Because it feels like Microsoft just loves the romance of E3, the nostalgia of E3. So I think E3 is where you should always keep. If you ever want to let the hype dog off the leash, do it for E3. I think when it comes to Microsoft, my guess is that this show will probably I think it'll probably be more low key, personally. Like, it'll probably be, hey, because remember, we're expecting Redfall and Starfield in the first half, as well as a lot of the ID at Xbox stuff, and like almost everything we know of Microsoft's 2023 is first half.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
So my guess is that whatever form this show takes will probably be about that first half and maybe dating everything, like giving it all a date, probably more so than anything else. And then E3 will be here's the second half and here's more cool future stuff and looks at stuff you've been waiting for and maybe the odd surprise. I don't know. But yeah, I think, as I like to always say, probably temper expectations for whatever this show will be.
Yeah, and I think that is a great strategy. Let people know what they're playing in the near future, and then let people know when they can hear from you again. As we know, if they're doing the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, which we assume they're going to do around June, if they can provide a show or an update at the start of the year that says, all right, we told you Forza was coming, we told you Redfall was coming, we told you Starfield was coming, we told you Minecraft Legends was coming, we told you Ara was coming, hit us with some dates on those. And if they can, like, even if it's, I guess, windows, even if it's months or spring even, I think that would, make a lot of fans happier about the near-term future, because it leads into people assuming that stuff like Redfall's delayed or Starfield's delayed or these games are never coming.
That's right.
And so they have this like impossible balance of trying to message to fans without overpromising. They can't say something definitively if they don't know definitively that it's coming, but they also can't be silent, because then fans kind of fill in the gaps with skepticism, with pessimism, because that's just human nature, baby. That's how we do it. A super chat related to this topic from earlier from Assassin. Says, hello, Miles and Nick and chat. With news of a rumored Xbox showcase, I wanted to ask, if it's true, should Xbox fans keep their expectations low as always, or should we expect some surprises? Thank you all, and keep gaming, everyone. See, that message is unfortunate. That's kind of the mentality that a lot of Xbox fans have going to the shows. Like, should we expect nothing? Should we go in just expecting typical fare? And that's the sort of messaging they have to figure out how to correct.
Yeah, oh God, I've spoken about this so many times over the years. Like, 9 lives to 10. Yes, I'm famous for it. Temper expectations. Always temper expectations, especially post COVID. Like, always temper them. Like, I've said this for a long time, and I still firmly believe it to this day. Microsoft's idea of what makes a show hype worthy is very, very different to what most of us would deem hype worthy. It's I've said before, Microsoft doesn't quite get it, and I still kind of believe that. They have their idea of what they think is super exciting, and then we, the hardcore gamer within our little bubble, we have our idea of what we think is an exciting show. Like that forever infamous E3 of dreams that Sony had back in 2015, I want to say.
2015 was the E3 of dreams, baby.
But that 2015 E3 perfectly encapsulates that whole bubble that we're all in. You look back at that E3 and it's like, that was garbage. But at the time, it was like, oh my God, the most hype thing ever. I mean, we got Shenmue 3 Kickstarter. We got, I think, Final Fantasy VII Remake, which came forever later. Like, it was, but at the time, it was exactly, Sony knew exactly what to put in there to get people super excited.
Yeah.
That's just a thing that I don't think Microsoft still quite gets yet. I don't know if they ever will, but they still don't quite get it yet. I think early Xbox One Microsoft knew. There's been a shift. There's someone that was at Microsoft that I reckon left. Because early
the hype
Xbox
man?
One,
I need a little John on stage, boy.
There was someone at Microsoft that used to know. Like, if you look at the early Xbox One E3s, they were good. Crackdown, and everyone loved Crackdown back then. Phantom Dust. Everyone's like, oh my God,
don't get me started on Phantom Dust.
It's like, oh my God, Phantom Dust, CG trailer. Like, someone at Xbox back then knew and was like, okay, put this in this show, put this in this show, put this in this show. That person, I suspect, is not at Microsoft anymore. Because in terms of the games themselves, I don't think that's changed as much as people like to say it has. But what has changed are their shows. Their shows just aren't quite as exciting as they once were. And I suspect that there was a person there who was there in the early Xbox One generation that's probably not there anymore, which is why I think the shows aren't just quite the same. They just don't seem to get what needs to be where.
I think they'll get back to that point, and I would argue that the showcase with your Fable, with your Avowed, with your State of Decay 3, that was kind of on that level.
Yeah.
For a while, they just,
sort of.
If we're being real, they didn't have much to show. They didn't have enough to pack shows.
No,
that was just kind of the dark reality of Microsoft's timeline for a little bit. And now we know they have a huge number of games and a huge number of studios. So I think that's where a lot of the noise kind of like comes from when it comes to people being upset with the current Microsoft. And a lot of this stuff takes time, and people don't want to hear that. People are tired of hearing that. And I get it. It's frustrating to have someone tell you to wait over and over again and say, it's coming.
I know.
And you say, when is it coming? And they say, soon. And then 6 months later, you say, okay, when soon? And they say, it's coming soon. And you just get fed this loop over and over. And at a certain point, you become disenfranchised with the idea that this is ever happening at all. And that's a tough place to come back from. That's a tough kind of balance to strike. And Microsoft that's where they're at right now. People are frustrated that they've been told stuff is coming and it's not here. And then you have people saying, oh, Everwild's never coming, Fable's never coming. And you have all these people just kind of, like I said, filling in the gaps with pessimism. And that's just kind of the state that Microsoft's in right now.
I apologize. Can I interrupt you for a second, Miles?
Uh-oh. Is it Rand? Is it Rand related?
Rand, listen, dude. Before Crackdown came out, everyone was excited for Crackdown.
I was excited. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Everyone loved Crackdown. Don't sit there with the, imagine using Crackdown 3 for a hype show. Everyone was hype. That first E3, when we heard the screen went black and all we heard was the orb sound, that sound from an orb being collected. I was here. I was lying. This couch is a bed. So I was down here. I had set it up as a bed. I was up early, 3 a.m. watching that E3. I still remember it. And I was in a party chat with a couple of friends and we heard that orb collection sound and we were like, oh, no way. There was a time when Crackdown got people hyped. Don't sit there now and retroactively poo-poo Crackdown because Crackdown 3 was a 68 Metacritic or whatever the hell it is. People were excited for Crackdown at the time.
I think I forget who said it in the chat, but it was an interesting comment. And basically, if you asked 1,000 people what would be a hype Xbox show, you would get 900 different answers. And I think that's part of it too.
Yes.
Is we all want something different. We all have different hopes and expectations and desires. And Xbox needs to have a show that caters to all of us. They need to have a show that caters to all 1,000 people. And they don't need to make sure every single game in the showcase is for you, but they need to make sure that one or two games from that showcase get you riled up, get you nice, all hot and bothered. And I think Microsoft is going to get to a point where they can do that. And I'm hoping, as we come off the back of 2022 into 2023, they can set that. And in terms of setting your expectations for the show, if there is a show in Q1, whether it be January, February, or March, I imagine it would be sooner, late January, early February, if they are doing one. And they would say, all right, here are updates on Redfall. Here are updates on Starfield. Here are updates on Forza. Here are updates on Minecraft Legends. And they would tell you when you could play these games. And I think if you just go into it expecting updates on what you already know about, and that excites you, be excited. If you want megaton bombshells from the Q1 showcase, no, don't do that to yourself. Save that for the June showcase. Like Nick said, I believe that when it comes to the bigger announcements that are maybe further away or updates,
it's always E3.
That would be where it would come from. But this first showcase, this rumored one at the start of the year, I imagine would be 99% updates on games we already know about.
Probably. I mean, have a look. Everyone was starting to take the angle of, oh, well, hold on. They're now starting to treat the Game Awards as a pretty big thing, to show.
And then all of a sudden they didn't. Then all of a sudden they didn't.
That's exactly, and that's why I keep saying E3 is the one. If you're ever gonna, like I said, if you're ever gonna let the dog off the leash to get hyped for an Xbox show, E3 is the only one where I would advise maybe do it then. Even then, it's not like they've never let us down at E3 before.
Mm-hmm.
But purely from a Microsoft perspective, Microsoft views E3 as the one. That's like the big thing where they save all the big stuff for. Now, some years that big stuff still isn't great, but if you look through history, if you look at the patterns, E3 appears to be the show that Microsoft saves everything for. So, I mean, have a look at how long has it been since we've seen Inside Xbox?
Couple years, right? Has it been?
Yeah,
at least a couple years. Yeah, it's been. That show, I think, is unofficially just retired. Maybe they'll bring it back, and then people will be annoyed. But I never really had a huge problem with it. I thought it was a cool, very fan-centric show.
They had no content for it.
Yeah, it was very. You had to be. That was inside baseball. That wasn't the show the casual person watches and gets hyped about Xbox. That was for the Xbox super fan who wanted more details on Xbox. And I don't think it's wrong to have a show for them, but I think you need to have both. I think you need to have a show that caters to Joe Schmo who just wants to see video games, and then people like us who are listening to podcasts and diving into the meat of it and getting those inside details. But you got to strike that balance, because as much as we're on Twitter and as much as we're online and in forums, the average person is not. And they have no idea what's happening behind the scenes. And if Xbox doesn't have a show that caters to them, then they're not going to be able to kind of close that gap with your PlayStations and Nintendos, who have just domineering brand authority. Xbox is my preferred platform. I play on it the most, but there's no denying the brand weight that a PlayStation and Nintendo have over Xbox right now. From a casual sense, a very casual sense.
Yeah. I've said in the past, like once they finally start to get these studios releasing games at a consistent rate, I don't see why they couldn't bring back something like Inside Xbox.
Yeah. Give like an insight to like, here's an update coming to Starfield, and just sit down with Todd and say, all right, here's Starfield's out. Here's what you can expect next, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. They need to just do it their own way. Like, they don't have to follow what Nintendo does. They don't have to follow what PlayStation does. Everyone used to dump all over Inside Xbox, and I'm like, the show in and of itself is ultimately beholden to the content within it. So if they don't have the content to support it, the show's not going to be great. But everyone loved the Inside Xbox, where they did that big, massive backwards compatibility dump.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, hold on, that's still an Inside Xbox. The format wasn't any different to any other Inside Xbox. You just love the content within it. So once they have that content to support a show like Inside Xbox, I don't see why they couldn't bring something like that back. Even if they don't want the branding because they think it's tainted now, they could call it something else. But I don't see why they couldn't bring back a more regular show, like a quarterly show. It doesn't have to be monthly. Maybe it's quarterly, or whatever the case may be, because they're going to hit a point, especially once ABK goes through. And remember, they're not going to be done. I doubt they'll be done after ABK. So they're going to hit a point where they could virtually have their own E3. So
God. The Xbox and Bethesda and Activision Blizzard King showcase.
And Activision and whoever else. Like, that they will hit a point where they could just be E3 by themselves. So it would be weird to have that many studios and that many games in the pipeline, but not have a more frequent update to what they're doing.
Yes.
As well, to go with it.
I agree. We're getting to the point where before they could easily do one big pop E3, maybe something at Game Awards, and you're good. Moving forward, that's not going to be an option. You can't just have 30 to 40 Xbox games shown at one time, once per year. So I think they're going to lean more into kind of like a state of play style, game focused ones, game focused showcase. Like, here's an update on Redfall. Here's an update on Starfield. Here's an update on Forza. And so in addition to a more just fast-paced showcase that shows you, like, all right, here's generally what you can expect, I think they're going to lean into some deeper dives. And I think those type of showcases will be like mini Inside Xboxes, where you have someone sitting down from the team talking about Starfield. Here's some gameplay. Here's what that means for you as a player. And if they can do that, if they can balance that, I think that's a great approach, because you have the quick, snappy showcase that shows fans, general fans of gaming, not just Xbox hardcore, that Xbox has stuff worth being excited about. And if you want more info and you want a deeper dive, then bam, here's a little Starfield show. Here's 25 minutes on Starfield. Here's 20 minutes on Redfall. And I know those things are much harder to produce than we give them credit for. I've talked to a lot of people behind the scenes about what goes into getting gameplay ready for those shows. And it's so much. When the game isn't done, it is so hard to get that gameplay. And that's why it's Xbox, I will say, has been a little inconsistent with that. And a lot of people are, because it's just a lot of work to do that. And if they have a huge team, and maybe they will just build up a massive video team that can work with teams and offset some of that workload and say, all right, I'll go in, I'll capture this, I'll go in, we'll edit this. And if they can do that, yeah, that's the dream scenario, because then win-win for everyone. The developers don't have to lose a lot of resources, and then we get more frequent gameplay updates. But it is a lot of work. but I'm just hoping
Yes.
that with all of the feedback from the community and the fact that they are trying to build the Xbox brand beyond what it is, and they want to compete with the PlayStations and the Nintendos of the world in a legitimate way, I want them to have a show that has the same excitement that a Nintendo Direct style show has. Because even if you aren't a Nintendo fan, there's just so much energy and enthusiasm surrounding that. And there's just this ravenous kind of excitement every time they announce one. Whether it's going to be a standout show or not, people are excited about that. And I want Xbox to have that. I really, really do. So.
That's going to take time, though.
Yeah.
It's going to take time, and it's going to take them showing consistency that they can sort of, again, I can understand why some people think that it may seem unfair that Microsoft has a different set of rules and a different set of expectations, but that's something that's built over many, many years. Like, look at the focus that was on Microsoft for 2022 and having no games. Yet in years where Nintendo have had no games, there isn't that same intense focus. You must say, well, that's not fair. Why is that? And it's like, well, because Nintendo and PlayStation don't tend to have repeated years where they have no games or not great games. And that's what I mean. It's a reputation that's built. Yeah, okay, here's an old dad saying, and I say this as an old dad myself. Reputations take like forever to build, but they're destroyed like in a second. Like reputations take a hell of a long time to build up, and so because Microsoft is still has this stigma where they're kind of viewed as the new guy to video games, even though they've been around for 20 years. They're still seen as the new guy. They haven't built up that rep because there's been so many times where they've kind of knocked it down with years where they just didn't have anything. Where Nintendo's been around for, God, how long is it now? It's close to 40 years. PlayStation close to 30. Like they've built that rep over a much, much longer time.
Yeah.
And they haven't I don't want to use the word wreck. That's not the right word, but I can't think of another word right now at 6:30 in the morning. They haven't, but they haven't. They haven't wrecked it as many times as Microsoft has over the journey. And Microsoft's done it in a shorter space of time. And it's a byproduct of the fact that Microsoft never cared about Xbox, and they never really budgeted Xbox, and they never, which is weird to say for a company that's been in games for 20 years, but I guess you have to look at, so from that point that Phil took over and convinced Satya to be all in, that's almost like a reset. It's like, okay, we're starting now, kind of.
Yes, I think that point overall is very interesting and very kind of apt when we look at Xbox in the space, because I do see people say like, well, yeah, Xbox is held to a different standard. They have to do more things and they have to, do all this stuff that the competition isn't doing. But when we look at Xbox wanting to compete, and if you're an Xbox fan, you want Xbox to compete in the space. You want Xbox to, rise up and get to the level of PlayStation and Nintendo. And if you do want that, they do have to hold themselves to a different standard, because they have to they have to build themselves up to this level. That cannot be given to you. And we've seen that with Apple's, we've seen that with Amazon's, we've seen that with Google's, who think that you can just buy your way into the games industry. And you just can't. You have to really, like you said, be consistent, prove yourself time and time again, and really win people over. And I think Xbox has done an amazing job, generally speaking. We look at the platform, when we look at just general reception, when we look at early console sales this generation, Xbox is doing well. There's no reason to say that Xbox isn't doing well, but Xbox's main goal right now is closing that gap. It's not a matter of Xbox wanting to do well. It's a matter that Xbox wants to be on an equal playing field with PlayStation and Nintendo. And that's why they're investing heavily. That's why they're spending $69 billion on Activision Blizzard. And that is why they're investing so aggressively in their first party and making sure that their first party games have the time and resources to hit, because they have to hit. They really, really have to hit. And Halo Infinite, even though it was a great game in so many ways, like it was a half step in my eyes. Like in some ways, yeah, it was the Halo we all wanted. In other ways, it wasn't at all. And it just made a lot of people upset. And I wanted Halo Infinite to be the kickoff of, this is what Xbox Game Studios means moving forward. This is, bam, we are the best in the business across the board. Here's what you can expect. And, you know, it wasn't that. It really wasn't that. And not in a PR sense. That's for sure.
And look how many times they delayed it. Like, as Miles mentioned earlier, they were willing to screw over the marketing deals that they had for chips and for drinks and to delay Halo, which is great. It's a great example of what Microsoft's willing to do to give their games the time that they need. But then Halo still came out the way it did despite all of that.
Let me give you a terrible analogy here when it comes to the brand weight, the brand power. Let's say PlayStation is Coca-Cola in this scenario, and Xbox puts out Coca-Cola. It's called something else, but they put out a drink that is Coca-Cola. And people
RC Cola.
And then people criticize that and say, "Whoa, this isn't that great." And then people say, "Well, it's PlayStation is doing this. This is Coca." And then you say, "But it's not Coca-Cola." And so you have this, despite the fact that it is an equal drink, it's got the same great flavor profile. It's got just as much caffeine. It has to compete with all of that brand weight that's been around for decades and decades. So it's not a matter of Xbox making a Coke equivalent. Xbox has to come out and reinvent Coca-Cola if they want to surpass PlayStation. And that's kind of the situation they find themselves in. And sure, it is...
Or come out with their own new drink.
Something
together.
Yeah, that's why they need to reinvent the soda game forever. And that's, in some ways, that's what they're trying to do with this push into cloud and this push into changing where we play games and what a platform even means. They are, in some ways, reinventing the soda game, but it's an uphill battle.
It is.
And so there's my terrible analogy for where Xbox is.
It's actually, it's funny. It's not as terrible as you think. Like,
in my head, it sounded good, but
no. It's an apt analogy because it's like, how do you explain it? So, your analogy in the world of that analogy, Game Pass is that reinvention of the drink.
That's true. That made PlayStation go back and try to, refresh its formula. They said, "Oh snap!
That's right.
People are digging this new flavor."
That's exactly right. And the problem is that when Pepsi comes along with something good, Coke usually just copies it and then just comes right back over the top. That's the problem. And that's that brand power we're talking about. Like, I've said this before. I think once PlayStation does adopt day one games in PlayStation Plus, which I maintain they are going to do, I reckon you can take it to the bank. One day, they are going to put their day one new games straight into PlayStation Plus. I expect that when that happens, they will reach the sort of numbers Microsoft is trying to reach much faster. Like, I know PlayStation Plus, as we speak right now, technically has more subscribers, but like, I'm judging that number on the highest tier, which is probably where they'll put day one games. They'll probably put day one games in whatever the highest tier is called. Is it in Australia? It's deluxe.
It should have been called platinum, but I forget what it's called. It should have been called platinum because platinum trophy. Come on now, I feel like an easy one, but I forget.
Yeah. So I assume they'll put the day one games in that highest tier, which here is deluxe. So I would judge them off their deluxe subscribers when day one comes. I expect that, like Disney Plus did, you know how when Disney Plus came along,
Disney Plus exploded. That thing hit numbers fast.
it hit Netflix's numbers so much faster, and it's because of what you said, brand power. Disney versus Netflix. You telling me Netflix has the brand power Disney does? And Disney's built it over hundreds of years.
Uh-huh.
Netflix just came along. Your analogy is more apt than you think. Like it's something that Microsoft just needs to find a different avenue to tackle this problem rather than just going at it the traditional way. You can't fight traditional against two opponents who have been there so much longer. You just can't.
Yeah, and that's, again, like I said, I have faith that Microsoft is building up to that, and they're going to have themselves positioned much better going into this year. I just hope they message that and communicate that in a way that fans, like general fans, like I said, I'm not talking about Xbox fans specifically. I think Xbox needs to look much broader than just Xbox fans if they're trying to grow. That being said, I want them to cater to Xbox fans who want those sort of updates. Huge shout out to everyone hanging out, rocking with us. If you are digging the show, hit that like button, share it out, show Nick some love. Like I said, we started this show at 5 a.m. his time. He's a trooper. He's hanging out. He's perking up. Let's get into it. Let's talk about release windows here. Let's talk about what Xbox's 2023 might actually look like when it comes to games. And we're going to start with the first half of 2023. Starting with the Redfall release window. So this comes from our good buddy Jez Corden, who put out a report over on WindowsCentral.com talking about when Starfield might be coming. And this report was this rumor originally came from Okami13, who claimed that Redfall was dropping early May. Jez has since corroborated this information, saying that potentially the first week of May, and potentially some premium editions, some Ultimate Gamer editions will get you access to the game a few days earlier, as we've seen with stuff like Gears 5, Forza Horizon, etc. If this is true, how are you feeling about the release timing of, early May for Redfall?
It's fine. I'm trying to remember what the actual date is, because the Kami Games showed me the thing, the proof of why he believes it's been internally delayed to May, and I can't remember. There's a date on it, and I if I check my DMs now, guys, I'll break Discord for Miles, and I'll end up leaving the show by accident.
Don't do it.
So I can't. Like 1 minute before this show was supposed to go live, I did that. I opened up a second Discord. I opened up a second Discord browser window, and it completely wrecked everything 1 minute before it was supposed to go live. So I'm not going to touch anything Discord related, but I wish if I had it in front of me, I could show you that date. I could tell you the date that's in there. I think May's fine. The problem comes, does that mean we're then going to have the whole, oh my God, they've got nothing for Q1 in the year of Xbox 2023 where they were supposed to have all these games? Is that the narrative that's going to start 2023 now?
Maybe.
If they have nothing in that first quarter, like they said Forza was spring. When does spring start in the US? You guys don't do it like us.
Spring starts middle, like March 20 something. Towards the end of March is spring for us.
Okay, so
I believe.
Yeah, so I have to wonder. Are they going to try and get Forza in that? Squeeze it into the last second of that first quarter so that they have something in that first quarter. Then they've got Redfall as your Q2, and then Starfield as your Q3. I don't know. I think May's fine. Is there a lot in May this year? Oh, there's Zelda.
Yeah, that's my concern. Is if they're targeting May, are they gonna?
Yeah.
Again, it's two separate games, two separate audiences, but
I know, but
what happened the last time a new open world IP dropped right before Zelda?
I know, Zelda.
Horizon? Horizon Zero Dawn, anyone?
Yes, I was on Boxenberger's show, World of Gaming, and we spoke about exactly this. And yes, from a pure they're two different games, two different audiences, two different. That's fine. Here's the issue. Arcane's games have a long history of being, I guess, not that they're not noticed, but they never generally got the attention that people thought they deserved.
A lot of people consider them very underrated in a lot of ways, and that's, I think, fair. I think a lot of their games, Deathloop was the biggest release that they've had, I would say.
Yes, and have a look why. Part of that was the fact that it was a PlayStation exclusive.
Had some big old marketing dollars thrown in that.
Yeah. How many times did we see Deathloop at a State of Play? We saw it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And Microsoft now wants to hype up Redfall because it's the first Arcane game under the ownership of Microsoft, and they're trying to hype it up, and it's like, oh god, and you're sending it out against Zelda. Like, oh my god.
Yes, things are different this time around. There is Game Pass, which is a vessel, but when it comes to Microsoft establishing its new IP, I want them to have that buzz, that moment where everyone is playing it via Game Pass and everyone is talking about it online. Everyone is Redfall is getting its moment. And if its moment is a few days and then Zelda comes out, that moment's going to be swallowed by the internet.
That's right.
And that's, again, regardless of Game Pass, people are going to play it, and I think that's fine. Redfall is one of my most anticipated games of next year. I'm more excited about Redfall than I am for Starfield.
This year.
But I want to make sure that Microsoft is aware of the rest of the industry when it's putting out new IP. Again, new IP, it's hard to build that audience, it's hard to establish it, and you need to give it all of the tools and timing possible to make sure that it hits, especially when you're talking about a horror game, so it's already niche. Arcane, who is, infamously underrated in a lot of ways.
That's right.
Like, this game needs to hit. It needs to hit, and they need to have that moment. And I'm fine with early May, as long as there is a full week. As long as there is one full week where Redfall gets its moment to shine, I'll be okay.
Because Zelda will bury it.
Zelda's the 13th. May 13th, correct?
Is it? Yeah. Oh god, what is Zelda?
It's something like that. Second week of May.
Okay. Let me see. Yes, 12th of May I've got here.
Yeah. So as long as there's one full week for Redfall to just come out and shine, I'm happy, because we got some new information this week about Redfall as well that I think is huge. Talking about its influence, because people saw the trailer and they said, "Oh, this is a Left 4 Dead clone," and then they had to come out immediately. Imagine that you reveal your game and then immediately have to say, "This isn't a Left 4 Dead clone." It's like, okay, well then, you missed the beat with your reveal trailer then. So yes, they have come out and said, this is more like your Far Cry. This is more like a Stalker. This is more like a Borderlands. Yeah. This is a big open world co-op RPG. And that's what I want. I want the idea of a horror Arcane co-op RPG has me so excited. They've always been amazing at player agency. They've always given you this great sandbox and these great tools to kill people or play the game however you want, and having the ability to cooperate with teammates and use their abilities. Like, let's go. I'm so stoked for that. We got some more details, which has me more excited. It's also given general fans and audiences a better idea of what to expect from the game. But that being said, outside of a couple trailers and a little bit of gameplay, it's definitely not getting the Deathloop push in terms of marketing. That's for sure.
No. I will say one thing that did get me excited, because one concern I've had about Redfall the entire way, and this is due to Arcane's history, I was a bit worried about the gunplay and whether it would be any good, because that's such an important, obviously, facet of a first-person shooter. And I wasn't overly enamored with the gunplay in Deathloop. Didn't feel the best to me. So I was a bit worried about it in Redfall. But then as part of this new info dump, we've heard that id has been helping them. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, we're in safe hands now.
Yeah, because if you played Rage 2... Or they did Rage 1 as well. It was Avalanche who helped with the vehicles on that. Like, the game gunplay in that feels so damn good. And that's a similar style. Like,
there's Doom.
Yeah,
obviously
Doom
well.
there's Doom. So they talk about in the interview that gunplay is important, and that's why they brought on
Yes.
the Legends id to make sure that the gunplay feels great, and so that's exciting. So this has the makings to be a huge game, and as we've seen time and time again with Game Pass, co-op games are huge. Co-op games are almost always huge. Even stuff that isn't that great, like your Outriders of the world, they'll still get a lot of draw and pull just via the vessel of Game Pass. So if this is a great game, I want it to have its moment. That's all I'm asking. I just want it to have its moment, and I don't want to have to come with caveats. Well, it could have been bigger if this, or it could have been better if this game didn't come out.
Do you find it odd? And I know this is going back a little bit, and it may start a slight tangent, so I apologize for that. But do you find it odd that not a single person at Arcane or Bethesda or even Xbox saw that reveal trailer before it was shown at E3? Was it E3 when Redfall was first revealed?
Believe so, yeah. One of the Xbox and Bethesda games showcases.
Yeah. Do you find it odd that across all these companies, Arcane, Bethesda, Microsoft, not a single person saw that trailer and went, people might think this is Left 4 Dead. Because you just said now that, they revealed their game and then straight away they had to be like, oh, no, this isn't a Left 4 Dead clone. It's like, did none of you watch that trailer and think to yourselves, ooh, people might think this is the Left 4 Dead clone?
Maybe I'm alone here, but when I watched the trailer, Left 4 Dead wasn't the first thing that I thought of. But that being said,
it was for me.
I went back and rewatched some of the Left 4 Dead cinematics, like the reveals, and the tone of that cinematic is so on brand with the way Valve marketed Left 4 Dead that I was like, okay, I get it now. And when I first watched it, I didn't feel that way, but I went back and watched some old Left 4 Dead CG trailers, and I was like, okay, I definitely understand where this is coming from, a more supernatural Left 4 Dead. I get why people are explaining that. So that being said, like when you have to come out and immediately backpedal on your reveal, it wasn't messaged properly. If that wasn't your intention, it is interesting. But
I don't even know if it's so much from the tone of the trailer. I think in terms of what the trailer was showing, people, again, I know I did immediately, and not in a negative way per se, just generally speaking, that my first thought was, this is Arcane's Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
You're co-op and you're shooting vampires as opposed to zombies. You're going around together and blah, blah. It wasn't so much the tone of the trailer per se. It was more what the trailer was showing us. Like, I was just kind of shocked that not a single person watched that trailer and didn't think to themselves, people might think this is a lot like Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, maybe a lot of it is just so ingrained with us as players, is like, a co-op shooter with horror. That's Left 4 Dead. that's Left 4 Dead.
That's right. That's exactly right. It's just, I'm just surprised none of them saw that before they revealed it.
That is the critical flaw of a CG reveal, I feel like, is that sometimes it can do a really good job setting the tone for the game, giving you an idea of what you're doing and how you should feel about the game. And I think Redfall was a prime example of where it can go wrong and where there can be a huge disconnect. And now the entire marketing cycle for Redfall has to be telling people it's not Left 4 Dead. So these interviews,
that's right.
These interviews are specifically designed to tell you it's not like Left 4 Dead. It's not, and all we're hearing about Redfall is that it's not like Left 4 Dead, and
that's right.
It's not a good place to be for a new IP. I'm sorry, it's just not. No. It's a bummer. So that whole saga is interesting. All right, Starfield next up on our list. So there's been a lot of speculation that Starfield might be delayed beyond the first half of 2023. Because in the showcase, they came out and said, everything you see here will be coming in the next 12 months.
12 months.
We had Forza, we had Starfield, we had Redfall. And so a lot of people are like, cool, Starfield is coming the first half. And then it's been really silent. Yes. There's been some rumors percolating that, okay, maybe it's going to be actually the holiday. It'll be a Q3 game or a Q4 game for Starfield. And like I said, the silence was filled with a lot of pessimism about its release date. And then the support website for Starfield popped up online today, and it reconfirmed that Starfield is targeting the first half of 2023. Considering the timing of Redfall, considering you know it's coming in the first half, when do you see Starfield hitting? You think in June? You think in May?
I'm sticking to my prediction of June. I still think June, and the date, I settled on a date too. I said June 6th, which I think is Diablo Day.
See, that brings an interesting point. If it is June, my God, we know June is packed. And we know Xbox is looking to buy Activision Blizzard King. They're trying desperately to buy it. Maybe it'll be closed by then. Maybe it won't. Who knows? But Xbox is trying to buy that. Are they going to drop Starfield on the same day as Diablo? Are they really going to do that?
I don't know. I mean, if it's first half, I don't see it coming before Redfall.
No, like I've been strong in the camp that I don't think Starfield drops before Redfall. And if Redfall is really coming May, that would leave June, really. If it is truly coming in the first half. Have to be June.
Yeah.
You think there's a world where it comes out before Redfall? I see people like throwing out March. I don't.
Because that's when Forza will probably be. Forza will probably be the before Redfall game. And here we are talking about burying Redfall under Zelda. Do you also want to bury it under Starfield as well?
And again, Microsoft has been bad about this in the past. When we saw Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite, and it was a couple weeks apart, and you have this huge gap where there's nothing, and then you're like, okay, we're going to put out our two biggest games this year within 3 weeks of each other. Let's go. Because Starfield's going to be huge, no matter what. I see people say, well, they can put it out anytime and it'll do well. It's going to do well. It's going to be a juggernaut game that they can put out at any time. But when I'm looking at myself as a player, and I'm looking at myself as, someone who is really excited about Diablo, I don't want Diablo and Starfield to drop the same week. I don't want them to drop a week apart, despite them being different. Those are two massive RPGs. Huge, massive RPGs that I don't want to have to, pick and choose which one I'm going to play. And again, I know Xbox has the power to drop games whenever it wants and leverage that whenever it wants, but come on. If Redfall is early May and if Starfield is early June, I don't know. It'll be fine, really, but I don't know.
Problem is, I don't know if they want another delay attached to Starfield.
No.
I don't know if they want another delay. I'm pretty sure Starfield was originally targeting late 2021. And here we are now in 2023, still wondering when this game is coming out. I don't know. I mean, in a vacuum, I don't see why they wouldn't just make Starfield their November game, personally. In a vacuum.
Make it the holiday console system seller.
Yeah.
But I think they're worried about breaking the promise at this point.
Yeah. That's right. That's what I'm saying. So that's why I said in a vacuum, but we're not in a vacuum. We have a lot of context around everything. So I'm sure probably if they could go back in time, they'd be like, man, we shouldn't have kind of promised Starfield at the start, because to me it makes right now we have no idea what the second half of 2023 looks like for Xbox. And I know I said before, Starfield Q3. I was like, a game like Starfield doesn't just release day one and then get forgotten about.
It'll have a long tail.
That's the only reason I see Starfield as a Q3 game, because yes, it'll be June, and then it's the game that carries them through July, August, till the next one comes out. So I apologize, Rand, that I wasn't more specific at 6:30 in the morning about Q3.
Rand has some predictions for dates here. So he's saying, here are two potential release dates for Starfield. April 17th, so it drops before Horizon Forbidden West DLC. April 17th, awful. If you're releasing Starfield 2 weeks before Redfall, my God, that would be that would be abysmal. That would be the worst. You're going to bury your new IP by Starfield?
You don't want to bury it. You don't want to bury it.
And then he's saying June 22nd, the same day as Final Fantasy 16, to give Square the middle finger. again, that would be an interesting way to be like, all right, well, PlayStation has a big exclusive RPG. Here you go, Xbox fans. Here's our big exclusive RPG, and as a way to fill the gap. And again, you can't really be mad. Square can't be mad if Xbox fans can't play their game anyway. So I would be happier with that, because then it would give a little more time for Redfall to breathe, and there would be a little more than a month between these games, especially if, you know, we are going the first 5-ish months without anything. Assuming that
the only reason I said, I was going to say the only reason I said 6th of June was because doesn't Todd have like a weird thing about cool dates?
they did 11/11, so yeah.
Yeah, 11/11/22. I just thought, oh yeah, 6/6/23. That like in my head, I was just like, oh, Todd has this funny thing about picking cool numbers. So I don't know. Maybe what day is the 23rd of June? Maybe he wants 23/6/23. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
what day?
Like, I love you, Todd, but let's not pick release dates because they look cool. Like, I appreciate you. I respect what you do in the industry, but please, let's not pick release dates just because they seem cool on paper. Let's pick release dates based on the slate of Xbox, the slate of the rest of the industry, and what's going to make sure that these games land when they need to land. And I think
a Street Fighter comes out early June as well.
Yes, June is ridiculous. We got Suicide Squad, we have Street Fighter, we have Diablo. If Starfield is coming in June, we'll have Starfield. And that's if nothing else gets bumped to June, or if nothing else gets confirmed for June.
Shadow Drop.
So it's already looking very full. And like I said, Starfield can come out anytime. It's going to have its audience. It's one of the most anticipated games of the year for sure. But if it's coming out, so let's look at this scenario. We have Redfall first week of May. That comes out. We have Zelda 2 weeks after. And then we have Starfield 2 weeks after. Regardless, and again, I know Game Pass changes things, but if you're releasing a massive open world RPG 2 weeks after another massive open world RPG, right next to a massive Diablo's transition to an open world RPG, read the room a little bit. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I know it's a big game. I know it's a big game, but please, for the sake of all of our time, think about it a little bit.
Yeah, like a part of me thinks, man, like I'm sure deep down they'd love to be able to delay Starfield purely from a release date perspective, like because again, what have they got in the second half of 2023? Anything?
Let's talk about it. Let's transition here. Let's talk about the rest of 2023 because we know potentially. Actually, let's talk real quick about Minecraft Legends and Forza. If you're throwing a couple windows on there, rough expectations. When are you expecting Forza? You think it's going to be the March game? Do you think it's going to come out in March?
Well, yeah, if they're sticking to spring and they don't want everything to clash, then yeah, March or April makes the most sense.
I would lean into April if it's coming. If it's coming that early.
Yeah.
And because I was kind of thinking maybe Forza's September.
But they said spring though.
No, they said spring.
They said spring. Unless they turn around and go, gotcha, we meant Australian spring.
Oops,
sorry, y'all. End of the year.
So again, if it's coming spring, I would say April. April would be the bet. But then, where does Minecraft Legends fall? They're gonna just sprinkle Minecraft Legends in between Forza, Redfall, and Starfield?
Mojang doesn't care.
Yeah, Minecraft's a juggernaut. But again, we you know, the meme was that Matt Booty was, you know, it's hard to schedule game releases because we have so many games coming. I mean, part of that is true. You really do have to be aware of when your other games are coming and make sure that all of these games have at least a window, at least a couple weeks.
Bit of room to breathe.
Yeah, so Minecraft Legends, I was expecting that in May. But if Redfall's in May, I don't know when it's coming then.
No. Have we heard much about that game?
Yeah, we've seen gameplay. We've had interviews. Like, that game,
what if it drops early? Like Feb?
That would be cool. That would be a cool way to get something out in Q1. Drop that early on. Get people excited. Like, let's go. Let's drop Minecraft Legends early on. Slap Forza Motorsport in April. Redfall in May. And Starfield in June. Just the Holy Trinity right there, back to back to back. And
yeah,
then,
that's right.
Like you said,
Then
what about the back of 2023? Are we going to have another situation where they just front load, they dump all of these games and say, oh, okay, we got to wait 6 to 8 months for anything else? Sorry. Or
yeah, but like, is that a problem? Because what has been a criticism of Microsoft for many, many years?
Games.
The criticism has always been, why do you save everything for fall?
Yes.
They always save everything for fall. People are like, hey, Microsoft, the first half of the year exists too. So now they're giving us everything in the first half of the year with seemingly nothing in the second half of the year. So they've now gone completely the other way. And it goes back to what people were saying in the chat earlier about, oh, they said 12 months, the next 12 months. They need to stop tying themselves down to these weird fake mandates. Like, because that's what happens. People are like, well, hold on. They said that everything at this show is for the next 12 months. The next 12 months is June 2023, which means Starfield can't release after June 2023. So if they had just shut their mouths and not said anything about this whole, well, this is only very strictly the next 12 months, people wouldn't be going, well, hold on. You said the next 12 months, so Starfield can't release after June. They could have just turned around and said, okay, Starfield's the November game. And all of a sudden, they've got Redfall, Forza first half, Starfield second half, and a couple of smaller things in between. And it's all spread out nicely over the year. But they tied themselves to this spring for Forza Motorsport. They tied themselves to the next 12 months for what they're showing at that specific show. So they've painted themselves into a corner now.
And now, and another thing, not only do they have to factor in all of their first-party games, when those are going to time, what they've told players when those will come, but they need to factor in all of the Game Pass deals, all of the big Game Pass day one drops, whether they're exclusive or not. Because the entire point of Game Pass, of selling a developer on Game Pass, is the idea that it's your game is going to get out to more players. You're going to get more exposure. You're going to get more word of mouth. So they can't bury any Game Pass releases. And we have Wolong, we have Liza P, we have Atomic Hearts. There's a lot of high-profile day one Game Pass releases confirmed.
Fox.
Yeah, but there's a lot of games, so they have to consider all of that. So it probably is like the meme from Charlie from It's Always Sunny, where he's got the conspiracy board and they're like trying to line up all of these things. And then you talk to your team and say, all right, we have a middle of May open. We got 2 weeks. What do you got? And then everyone says, I don't have anything. It's not going to be ready. And like, okay, well, when is it going to be ready? And so it probably is really complicated. There's a lot that goes into it. But that being said, I just want them to
chat.
What?
The chat's like, why do we want Starfield delayed? It's not about wanting Starfield delayed. It's about them wanting them to spread their releases out over the year.
Yeah,
don't look at it as, oh, we want Starfield delayed.
It would have been dope if Starfield was ready in holiday of last year and just dropped. That would have been dope.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wanted Starfield delayed. A lot of people were mad.
No.
If you've been online, a lot of people were mad that it was delayed. But that being said, when it comes to timing and big pops, that could be a big holiday system seller, is why I look at like a November release date again for this year and say, like, hey, it'll have more time to be polished and tight, and it'll have a big holiday window, and then you can put other stuff around it. But if it is truly coming in the first half, it'll be the last possible day of the first half, in my opinion.
That's right. Yeah. Probably. Like I said, I only picked the 6th because it was like, again, it was one of those Toddisms. 6, 6, 2, 3. 2 times 3 is 6. 6, 6, 6. Ha ha ha. Like, it's just, and again, that's probably Jesse. Jesse's in the chat, and like, he was talking about that's why Diablo did the 6th of the 6th, because it becomes 666. But that just looked like one of those cool dates that I thought Todd might want to release on. It probably wouldn't be 6th of June, but they've kind of painted themselves into a corner with this first half thing. Like, I saw someone in the chat going mental gymnastics. Yeah, it is mental gymnastics. 100% it is. And it's mental gymnastics that Microsoft themselves have asked us to perform with all their little rules and their mandates and their all that crap.
Let's talk about the second half, because I don't like, let's say what we've talked about, Forza, Minecraft Legends, Redfall, Starfield. Let's say those all come out in the first half. I really
Yes.
think there is potential for the rest of the year to have at least one more noteworthy. I think they are going to
What?
have. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what could potentially be there if all of those games come first half. What's the one game you imagine has a legitimate, like I stress, a legitimate possibility to ship in the second half, whether it be fall or whether it be holiday for Xbox? You're picking one game that we know about that could come out. What is that game to you?
Arc 2?
I mean, yeah, Arc 2, that's going to be exclusive. I think that will be a nice late summer.
I
I could see
I
that be a
think
late
that's going to
summer game.
be probably their big push because it's an exclusive in the end.
And it's got
And
Vin
the
Diesel,
first
baby. Let's go.
Vin Diesel, Arc 1, despite how terrible I think the game is, was still a very big game.
It's still huge. You look at active, it's got like 75,000 concurrent players, like day over day. That game is still huge.
Yeah. So I think it'll be Arc 2. The problem is, no, I don't know if anyone wants to talk about it because it's not a game we all care about. But I think it'll be Arc 2. That'll be their push for the second. That'll be their holiday. Unless something like a Hellblade 2 comes out of nowhere. And at E3, they're suddenly like, well, guess what? Hellblade 2 is ready to go second half of the year.
That would be my pick. If I'm picking one game of what we know about from Xbox that could come out, I think Hellblade 2 has potential to be their holiday game. I would hope. Let's be real. Let's use it like we joke about the Oscars and like the Oscar bait movies that come out right before award shows. Hellblade 2 could be Xbox's Game Awards bait. Put it out.
It is
2 weeks before the Game Awards stuff goes live. Have that game fresh in people's minds. Have everyone talking about how good the game is, how great the game looks. Put Ninja Theory front and center. Because that is outside of Starfield, that is definitely their most marketed, most anticipated title. Hellblade 2, they're putting a lot of energy into getting people excited about that. And if it is ready, we know mocap's done. We have seen gameplay. We have seen in-engine stuff. We've seen developer updates. We have seen the most of Hellblade 2 from any of these projects. Way more. So it shows that they are comfortable enough to show something for this game, which clearly a lot of the other projects aren't ready for that. So, realistically, if there is one big quote-unquote banger for 2023 from Xbox.
First party.
Okay. I think it's going to be Hellblade
Probably
2.
Hellblade.
But I do think Arc 2 will be a good pop. I do think Lies of P will be a good pop. I don't think Lies of P is exclusive, though, right? Or is it?
No, it is not.
Still, that'll be some big marketing pops for him. And I have to imagine we might also see one smaller scale project kind of pop up and maybe potentially drop in that
and see, everyone's saying
window.
Arc 2 is first half apparently as well.
I don't. Like, I know Microsoft wants to, get that. Arc 2 is not a first party game. There's no way they can ensure it comes first half. And considering we haven't seen a second of gameplay for an open world survival game, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say we don't see that first half. And if Microsoft's first half is as stacked as we just talked about, why even bother putting Arc out?
Why release it? Like, because they'd have a deal with Arc 2, which means they'll put marketing into it, almost first party type marketing into it. Why put that in the first half as well? Are people going to be upset if Arc 2 is in the second half? I doubt it.
What it's really, like you said, what it's really going to boil down to is people are going to look at Microsoft saying these games are coming in the next 12 months, and any of them that don't, people are going to say, well, you said this.
But Arc 2's not theirs.
Yeah, I'm just saying they said every game you saw in this showcase today. They didn't say all of our games in the showcase today are coming first for next 12 months. So it's a technicality. It's
I know it is, and it's like adults being babies. So what if Arc 2 is second half, despite them saying at the show that this is all 12 months? Who cares? Like who actually cares? Will it actually affect anyone's life if Arc 2 is delayed to the second half of 2023?
Vin Diesel.
No one will care.
Vin Diesel.
Vin
Diesel will care, Nick.
Care.
Come on.
Again, unless they have a surprise like Hellblade 2, what? That's the only reason I thought Arc 2, because
Hellblade 2 I've seen some people in the chat talking about Stalker too. That would be a cool one. If they could use Stalker in fall and Hellblade for holiday, that'd be a nice way to close out the year. And I think again, it depends on GSE Game World because, as we all know, their situation is it's been terrible. Like they've had to deal with a war, which is disrupted game development for them in a big way. On top of everything else,
people in the team have died.
Yeah, people have died in combat. It's a terrifying, just tragic situation over there, and we're all rooting for him. And it would be awesome if that game was out, but. Yeah, the last thing I want them to have to worry about is the pressure of committing to any sort of release date. So
if they want to release in 2024, go for it. Like no one should be busting their balls on when that game releases, given the circumstances. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, isn't it? That second half, as of right now, looks empty. As of right now.
But see, circling back to our previous conversation about how they can message this, if they fill up the first half, they give us a showcase that tells us what's coming the first half, get us focused on that first half, we're not going to care. We're not going to care what's coming the second half. And then they circle back around in June and say, bam, here's what you're going to be playing in the second half. If they can do that, the reason so many of us talk about Xbox not having games is because Xbox hasn't been giving people games to fill their time. A lot of people who want the first party Xbox exclusives have nothing but time because they're not here. So they can fixate on, what's the back half look like? If you cram that first half with Redfall, Forza, Minecraft, and Starfield, are people really gonna fixate as much on the second half? Especially if they say you'll hear more from us and what you'll be playing in the second half in June. If they just come out and say that at this first,
if they have that plan, yes, that's if they have that plan.
That's true.
E3 becomes that. Yeah, if E3 becomes that second half of 2023 and future, then fine. But if it's not, remember what we were talking about before. There's kind of a different set of rules for Microsoft. And how
Mike 2K actually has an interesting point here. When High on Life tells us we don't need a big first-party title. We just need whatever the game that's in Game Pass to be good. It doesn't have to be first-party. That was still an exclusive, that being said. But that's the beauty of Game Pass. And that's the reason we see PlayStation lean into exclusivity deals when it comes to stuff that isn't first-party, is because it's an easy way to get the conversation about you. This game is dope. Yeah. You can only play it on Xbox right now. This game is dope. You can only play it on PlayStation right now. And it doesn't matter if 12 months later it comes to somewhere else. It doesn't, because in that moment, you have that. You have that weight. You have that word of mouth. You have that FOMO. Yeah. And people are like, damn, I want to be playing High on Life. Everyone's saying High on Life is funny. I want to play that. And you're like, I don't have an Xbox. Like, well, you can play it on PC. But there is weight to that. There is definitely weight to that. And Microsoft, I think, is strategically leaning into Game Pass this year to fill some of those gaps with stuff like Arc 2 in particular.
Yeah. See, I agree with what Sappho just said in the chat. The media will gaslight Xbox to high hell and back if they have nothing in the second half. And that's what I think. I think if they've got nothing in the second half, it won't be good enough.
No,
the first half was like stacked.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Just to clarify.
No, I know. No, I know. I'm just saying I just saw that in the chat, and I'm like, I agree. Like, I think if they don't have anything, because again, different set of rules. If they don't have anything first party or exclusive or whatever second half, because they stacked it all into the first half, I agree with you. A normal adult would say, well, Jesus Christ, we have so many games from the first half to play.
I'll just play Starfield for 6 months.
Yeah, like we have Forza, we have Starfield, we have Redfall, we have Party Animals, we have Benedict Fox, we have all these games to play in the first half. We don't even have time for anything else in the second half. Yes, a normal adult would view it that way. But as we understand with social media and everything and in the gaming industry, we're not all normal adults. And we have to have something in the second half. Otherwise, the world comes to an end. So that's the only reason I say they need to have something. Even if it's just the one game, they need to have something. And that's why, from everything we know of, because again, like, yes, we're speculating maybe Hellblade 2. That would be a surprise, though. Most would agree that if Hellblade 2 is the second half of 2023 game, that's a surprise.
That would be a nice
It's not
way to
expected.
cap off the year. Yeah, I'm not. I would
Where
definitely not say that's not a confirmed release by any means.
That's exactly right. So in terms of stuff that we can kind of confirm is a 2023 game, that's the only reason I thought it'll. I think it'll be Arc 2. That's the only reason I say that, because it's the only game we know that's exclusive. Big. It's going to be probably heavily marketed. It's got a campaign. It's got a single player campaign. It's got Vin Diesel. Everything that I'm hearing about the game is that apparently it's supposedly quite good. I don't know. And again, knowing how Microsoft works, I suspect, I just have this suspicion it'll be Arc 2.
Jesse brought up
That will be
Valheim
the
as
game.
well. If they can do Valheim and Arc 2, like those are both going to be massive hits for Game Pass regardless. Those are big games. But that being said, I don't think Microsoft is going to really not have anything for the back half. I think I'm of the mindset that 2022 was just kind of a reset year where they looked at what they could do. They wanted to put out Redfall and Starfield. That didn't work out. And so they're like, okay, well, we're just going to make sure that 2023 has something consistently. And we're going to talk to our teams, see what those are, figure that out. But I don't think that we're going to be going another 6 months. Again, you can clip it and meme it if you want after the fact, but I would be shocked if the back half of 2023 didn't have at least one first-party drop. I don't know if it's going to be massive. I don't know if it's going to be the Hellblade 2, but I would be legitimately shocked if there wasn't one big first-party pop in the back half of 2020.
I don't know. This is Microsoft we're talking about.
It is. It really is. It definitely is. So it is totally possible that we'll go. The first half will be 2-packed. They'll release games 2 weeks apart, and then they'll go 8 months without releasing a game. That is possible. That is
very
in Microsoft's MO 100%.
Yes.
And if that happens, I'm going to be a little disappointed.
Yeah, but don't you... Here's the thing, though. Like, don't you find that odd, though? Like, in the end, if you said to someone, in 2023, Microsoft is going to release 4 first-party games, right? Let's just say someone said that to you. Big games, big AAA exclusives.
Yeah.
You'd be like, awesome.
Yeah, let's go.
Like, awesome. So why does that change if all 4 of those games were to release theoretically in the first half?
So
you're still getting
all
those
of this
4 games.
All of this ties into the things that you've talked about with Microsoft setting expectations, painting itself into a corner. Remember when they said they told everyone they want to have one big AAA game, one big first-party game per quarter? Remember that? And everyone's like, when are you doing that? And they haven't done it yet, and it's been years. And if they don't do it, that's going to come up. Even if they have 4 big AAA first-party games in the first half of 2023, which is impressive. Let's be real.
Yeah.
If we're just being objective, it doesn't matter if you think Microsoft is held to an unfair standard or not. 4 big first-party games in the calendar year. I don't care when they come out. That's a big deal for anyone.
Yes, that's right.
But because they said they want to do 1 per quarter, and they have yet to deliver on that, that is going to come back up. And if any of those games slip from the 12 months that they promised, that is going to come up. And it's going to compound into both of those. If both don't happen, if something slips from the first 12 months and doesn't make it to the back half, and they don't have anything big for the back half of 2023, again, I don't believe that's going to happen. I thoroughly don't. And again, I know the meme is wait till next E3 or wait till next year. They're going to do it. I want to believe they've figured it out and they have some stuff cooking and they're excited. Because again, I haven't gotten specific information, but I've talked to people from Xbox behind the scenes and off the record about, what's going on? What's the plan for 2023? And everyone seems genuinely optimistic and genuinely excited about it. And one thing that they keep telling me, again, and they've posted similar things online, is that we have a lot in 2023. We have a lot in 2023.
They do. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm an old man. I just find it not sad, but almost sad that like Microsoft keeps tying themselves down to these things, like you say, game per quarter, next 12 months, and the way people hold them to that. I find it weird. Like in the end, if Microsoft has 4 games this year, but they're not spaced out over each quarter, why is that a big deal? Like in the end, the
It's
games are
only a
there.
big deal because they set that expectation for
That's right,
themselves.
because they said something. So
Is
I
it a
think
big
the
deal to
lesson here
me?
is
Not really.
it's not. Look at everyone in the chat. This chat, man, seriously. It's not a doom spiral. We're
No, that's just
talking
Rand
about
trolling.
what's
That's not the
happening.
chat. That's just Rand. Rand's just
Like,
trolling.
if anything, I'm not dooming. I'm saying it shouldn't be a big deal if they don't have 1 game per quarter, as long as they have those games. Like, unless you suffer from very severe FOMO and you only want those games when you want them and you have to play them right at the start and you can't wait. What's the big deal? Like if Forza, Starfield, Redfall are all at the start, you don't have to play them then. You can play them in the second half of the year just fine. That's okay.
Space them out for yourself. Say, I'm only playing
That's
one of
okay.
these Xbox games per quarter, and you're set, babe.
That's fine. You can play Redfall in November if you want. You don't even have to play it in May. You can play it just fine in November, and it's your Xbox November game.
See, I put out a tweet earlier this year talking about, like, if Xbox had Redfall, Forza, Starfield, Minecraft Legends, Age of Empires, and I think one other game. I think I even threw in Hellblade. Like, I said, if Xbox releases all of these in 2023, is that enough? And shockingly, I saw a lot of people say no. And I was like, if Xbox releases Redfall, Starfield, and Hellblade alone, if they released nothing else at all in 2023, me personally, I would think that was enough. But I know because Redfall was delayed, because Starfield were delayed, the idea for some people is those games don't count anymore. Those games don't count as 2023 games. But
so then that means PlayStation had no games in 2022 because they were all delayed.
They were all delayed games. See, again,
so
it's.
See what I mean? The different standard.
Everyone is entitled to feel the way that they want. I'm a big supporter of, empowering people's feelings. It's important that we all feel heard in this space when we have these conversations. But I'm
old. I don't believe that.
I was genuinely shocked by how many people told me no. That, oh yeah, Ghostwire Tokyo was in that list too. So it was Ghostwire Tokyo, it was Redfall, it was Starfield, it was Forza, it was Hellblade, and Minecraft Legends, and Age of Empires.
Age of Empires
people
as well.
Told me,
see what I mean?
People told me that wasn't enough, and I'm like, what? No,
how is
that's
not enough?
That's a huge year. Nintendo and PlayStation don't hit years like that very often. Every once in a while, there'll be a fluke year where it's just that stacked.
Ever.
But
you know what I think? You know what I suspect it might be? I suspect it's a camera angle issue. I suspect it's a camera angle.
Go
issue.
on.
There's not enough.
Elaborate.
Third person. There's not enough third person in there.
Oh,
I think that's what causes the don't count business that seems to be going on. There's not enough. Camera hasn't drawn back enough from the player. I think that might be the issue. Call me crazy.
Some people prefer third person. My wife is a prime example. She does not like first person games. Grounded.
Fine.
I play in first person. She plays in third person. I think more games could have an option, and I know it's not as easy as just like toggling the switch. We saw that with Resident Evil, like how weird and janky that looks. Same with Cyberpunk. There's a lot that goes into that. But that being said, I think for accessibility reasons, there should be more options for third person. But I don't have a problem with first person. I don't know if that's where a lot of the crux of these criticisms come from, but maybe it is.
Again, it goes back to what we said earlier. Those different rules. If, all of a sudden delayed games don't count, well then 2022 was terrible for PlayStation. They had literally 0 games.
Yeah, you can be upset about 2022. I think that's fine. They didn't deliver for a lot of people. I think that's fine. I'm looking towards the future. That's in the past. We can't change the past. We can be upset about the past, but that doesn't help our current, and that doesn't help the future. So I'm, forever an optimist in a lot of ways, and I want to believe that Xbox has taken a hard look at 2022, taken a hard look at how things played out, taken a hard look at how it messages games and release dates. I saw somebody in the chat saying, I don't know if you want to take him up on this offer. Somebody was betting $50 that Starfield's going to drop on March 23rd,
March 23rd.
March 23rd, 2023. And again, Todd, no, Todd. Don't do it just because the release date looks cool on paper. I'm sorry. If that's how you're running a business, my God. Because I thought, here's where I was at. When they said the release date for Starfield was 11/11/22, I was like, okay, dope. They have given themselves so much extra time just to make sure. Just to make sure they can hit that cool release date. They want the anniversary release date, so they're giving themselves ample time to hit that. And then it got delayed. And I was like, no, they were just doing it for the frickin' anniversary. They didn't care what the progress of the game was. And we saw the same thing with Halo Infinite and the anniversary. You know, it's like, oh, it is cool. From a marketing perspective, yes, that is cool. I get it. Anniversary of Skyrim. We released Starfield. Cool. But I'm sorry. Do not ever dictate your business around a date that looks cool on paper. It's out of control.
But they do, though. They do.
I know.
They buy into that romance. That's where the game industry is so unique and different to others. Like, they still, despite just ultimately being businesses within the entertainment industry, they still seem to buy into that romance aspect of it.
We all do. I do. We all
do.
We all fantasize about how cool it would be and how perfect it would be if all these stars aligned and the game hit this date and it tied into this and it tied into this. And
I did it with Halo.
Yeah.
I kept banging on that drum about Halo. I'm like, you have to release Infinite on Halo CE's anniversary. You have to. I've done it myself. I'm guilty of it too. It's weird with games, isn't it? It's all part of that nostalgia that we all still buy into too.
And then, Nick W says, the day before the RE4 remake, hell no. That's where I'm at.
Oh,
sorry,
God,
Todd. If you drop that near Resident Evil 4, you're dead to me. You're dead to me. But again, I know people play
so much in the first half, isn't there? Like right now in the second half, there's all we know about in the second half, just generally, not Xbox now. All we know about in the second half is what? Spider-Man?
Oh, yeah, Spider-Man's coming second half.
Whatever Call of Duty 2023 is. What else?
I don't know. We know the first half is packed. Mike, if you look at the calendar for the first 6 months,
it's ridiculous.
Oh my God. It's
ridiculous.
I was looking at myself and I'm like, all right, which games am I going to play? Which games am I going to cover? I have to pick and choose like one big game per month to like actually legitimately play. Because I know what I always do is I buy all the games and then I finish like one of them. And I'm like, well, why didn't I just wait?
Yep.
I've had so many times where I bought a game day one, I didn't play it for 2 months, and then 2 months later it's like $30 off, and I'm like, why did I do this to myself? So yes, it's packed. I'm excited. I'm really excited. But again, Brand is saying April's wide open. I agree. Yes.
Yeah. Is it?
Is
April open?
So far, it's not like February and March are stacked, and then it sounds like May's going to be stacked, and then June. My God, please don't add anything else to June.
So then why not get Redfall into April?
The rumor, I don't know how this is true, is that's what they were targeting. But there was maybe an internal delay for Redfall. Again, according to the rumor, is that was probably more the window they were targeting, and then they had to push it a little bit. But
because if April really does have nothing, then to me, April makes perfect sense.
That's what I want. I want Redfall to have that just moment where there's nothing else around. And so all eyes are on Redfall because I want these IP to hit, and I want these IP to like gain an audience. So
May is Zelda. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what game you are. May is Zelda, and that's it. That's
I know,
all that's
and I know a lot of
May.
Xbox fans don't care about Zelda, and that's fine. But that being said, there were a lot of people who didn't care about Elden Ring, and look at how the several months after Elden Ring came out, it was Elden Ring.
All you're going to be reading about in May is Zelda. All the gaming outlets, all the forums, all you are going to hear about in May is Zelda, whether you like it or not, or care or not. That's all you're going to hear about. That's why I'm like, why would you just?
It's going to be one of the biggest releases ever of all time, and it's going to be it's going to be a juggernaut. Again, if you don't care or not, that's fine. I'm not expecting everyone to care about Zelda, but if you're on Twitter, good luck trying to avoid Zelda. Good luck. and Godspeed
My
to you.
God.
All
Yeah.
right, let's get to some community questions here from the old Windows Central Discord. Everyone who's been hanging out, appreciate you. If you've been having fun, hit that like button. If you're new to the show, we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific time. 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. If you're digging it, subscribe to the channel as well. Community questions here from our Discord. And if you want to join the Discord, there is a link in the description of this video, whether you're listening on audio services or watching live on YouTube. First question comes from Goldshell, who says, what do you think the next big non-Microsoft acquisition if the Microsoft Activision deal goes through? I think Amazon tries to grab Embracer Group and Meta tries to grab Ubisoft. So jumping back outside of the Xbox bubble for a minute, what do you think is the next big non-Microsoft acquisition during this perpetual acquisition season, as you coined?
Yes. I can't believe that term is still persisting like 2 years later.
Yeah, it's a
Or a
beautiful
year and a half
it's a
later.
beautiful meme that we're all just holding on to, I think, at this point.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I should be. Yeah. Oh God, I don't even know because I don't know. I see Amazon almost like I see Google, almost. Like I think they're gonna stick around longer than Google did, but I see Amazon in this boat where they're like they're going to be sort of this in between, not quite Microsoft, not quite Google. So they'll be like, oh, hold on, we're starting to realize that this is going to cost a lot more. Getting into the gaming industry is going to cost us a lot more than we anticipated. And our projections or whatever, we don't see us ever really gaining a legitimate foothold. So why do we want to sink too much more money in? So I think they'll stick with what they've got because apparently New World is doing okay.
Yeah, New World has actually gained New World and Lost Ark, and they're also going to be doing Blue Protocol, which looks really cool.
Yeah, so I suspect that they'll probably just stick to what they're doing and dig their heels in and maybe just do more of those smaller, like you know how they've got Ubisoft in Luna, they've got the Ubisoft channel. I suspect they'll probably just do more stuff like that. I don't know if Amazon will go big, to be honest.
I could see Amazon, now that they're expanding their publishing wing to console as well as PC, I could see them basically being like EA Originals, where they just partner with other developers and publish their games under the Amazon banner.
And I mean, they're publishing Tomb Raider.
Yeah, they're publishing Tomb Raider.
From Embracer. So I think Amazon will just stick to that. I don't think they're going to go big, even though they're a massive company. I don't think they're going to go that big.
I think...
You know what? I'll stick with my crazy one that I've always said all along. Apple's going to buy Sony.
That would be... God, that would be wild. That would be honestly wild, and that would be two juggernauts who would...
I still think it's going to happen.
That would be a scary tag team. If we're being honest, like, because
I think it's a match made in heaven.
So established,
if you think about it.
And Apple wants to build up its TV and entertainment side of things.
Yep.
So
yep.
I don't know that it's realistic.
Gaming. But... I don't know. I still can't shake this feeling that Apple will buy Sony at some point. Now I don't know how regulators will feel about that, but I don't know. It's just such a perfect fit.
Yeah, I think
Apple and Sony.
Post this acquisition, I think things are going to slow down a bit because, one, the economy sucks right now. The economy's really bad. We're already seeing people who bought teams like closing them down or selling them off. So,
but isn't that more reason why the big companies will buy? Because they won't want their money sitting there not doing anything in a time when everything is crap. They'll want to put that money into something.
Yes and no. Because I imagine Microsoft right now, they want this deal closed as soon as possible because of how uncertain the economy is. Because no matter where the business is, no matter how strong they are or how, uncertain things are, they're spending $69 billion. And even though, you can say, I don't want money sitting around, that's still a lot of pressure. If things aren't good and you have to spend $69 billion, it's probably a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. You probably have to reevaluate some investments. So I imagine that because of unless the economy drastically improves, we're not going to see a lot of super high profile ones. I don't think we'll stop seeing smaller teams or independent developers, but when it comes to like a major player buying another major player, it's going to be a headache. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a guess because I think
maybe if Apple and Sony is too crazy for everyone, maybe Sony buying CDPR.
Yeah, I think that's
maybe
something along those lines. That's one individual publisher who has, not a huge number of studios. I think that's reasonable. I think Microsoft is probably going to, after this headache, I think they're going to strongly reconsider other big I know people are saying, next they're going after WB. Next they're going after Capcom. Next they're going after
Capcom
Square.
I want Capcom and Sega.
Capcom would be, I mean, if you want to fix your Japan problem, buy Capcom. And you're done. That's it. You have the most stacked Game Pass library imaginable. You have all these brands that are automatically huge in Japan. And Capcom and Xbox actually have a decent relationship as is. So, yeah, in my eyes, that's the pick. If I'm Xbox, like I would have done that over Activision Blizzard. I know there's other reasons, the mobile side of things. I'm looking at this from strictly a gaming perspective. I think Capcom's a better pick strictly from a gaming perspective, but Call of Duty's huge.
Yes, me too.
The mobile factor's huge. There's a lot of reasons to pick up Activision Blizzard. Blizzard, in particular, I think, is on the gaming side another big win when it comes to Diablo, Starfield, Warcraft, these established IP. But yeah, things are going to be rough. And I think Microsoft is tired of this deal and probably not eager to jump straight into another legal battle. Because if there were question marks about this one and they go straight into another one, it's
it's already the biggest one. You're not getting bigger than Activision, so anything after this is smaller.
That's true. That is true.
Now, having said that, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're just going to go from Activision straight to EA or something, but I could still see them. I could still see them even straight after still having a crack at like a Capcom or a Sega or someone like that. I could still see it.
I don't think it's off the table. I don't think it's off the table by any means. But I'm just curious how aggressive they'll be when it comes to those big publishers. Especially if this has to go to court and this takes another year to close.
But from a dollar value, Capcom and Sega aren't that big.
They could have bought Capcom and Sega for sure. Like I don't know that they want to be sold, but you could have used that Activision money to buy 3 other smaller publishers in this time.
Oh.
But now they're in limbo forever, and they're in this acquisition purgatory with Activision. So,
and the thing is, if they had done those smaller ones first, they wouldn't have had the eyes on them.
Those would have been just flown right under the radar. Like there would have been a little scrutiny, sure, and some investigation, but
just like Bethesda, it would have just
exactly
ultimately gone straight through. But now that they've done ABK, they're always going to have eyes on them, no matter who they try and purchase now. Like in terms of a publisher, like obviously if they were to go and like acquire certain affinity, no one's going to say anything. But if they were to now have a crack at Capcom, Sega, Square, WB, they're going to have the eyes on them because of ABK.
Should have got the smaller ones out of the way first,
They should have done the smaller ones first.
But anyway, it sounds like that whole situation, that was kind of... I don't think Microsoft was actively planning on buying Activision Blizzard. I think it was a situation where they were looking to buy, somebody talked to somebody, and they said, okay, well, actually, for this price, I think we can swing it. And that set this ball rolling.
Some stuff was happening around ABK in the background that I think Microsoft became aware of and were like, "Ooh, hold on a second.
Oh, wait a second. Hold up. Well, we weren't. This wasn't on the table originally, but I got $69 billion to play with. Let's talk."
Yeah. That's some change in the car.
Another question here from the Discord from Normskasan. I feel like I'm butchering that, but
Normskasan. Okay.
Do you think we see the promise feature of being able to play a selection of our own games via cloud at some point this year?
Wasn't that meant to be last year?
Yeah, I think that was meant to be last year, or at least there were talks of it. Rumors. I don't think Microsoft ever said officially that it was coming last year, but they said that is a feature that they are working on. And we've had reports say that it might be coming before the end of the year. But now going into next year, an interesting development on this that I want to touch on, Exoprimal on the Xbox store had the cloud. Had the little cloud badge on it, but no Game Pass badge. So that either means some people are saying, well, it's coming to Game Pass. I don't know. But it could also mean that Microsoft behind the scenes is getting that ball rolling so that you do have a selection of games that you own that you can play on cloud, and maybe Exoprimal is going to be one of the first ones that launches day and date, and you have Exoprimal on your console, on your PC, and on cloud if you want, and it's not necessarily in Game Pass. I think that's going to be a huge boon for the service, because if they want people to invest in buy games, they need the option to play them on the cloud. Because sure, Game Pass is cool, there are hundreds of games you can play, but Elden Ring isn't on Game Pass. Elden Ring is one of the biggest games. And if you can play that on cloud, that's a wait. So I could see it coming this year. I don't have a window as to when that would be coming, but I think it's safe to say we'll at least see a handful of games ship with it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because you brought up Exoprimal. Is this have I done it again? Is this the longest show you've had?
Not the longest. We're getting we're getting really close. Mike, Snowbike Mike, the legend. I think him and I went 3 hours and 5 minutes, and that was the gauntlet. But we're at 240 something. So shout out to everyone who's hanging out. Shout out to you for marathoning this first thing on a.
I'm sorry, I did this to Boxenberger as well. He had like a 4-hour show thanks to me.
Hey, I
apologize
I'm here for it.
for
I'm
doing
here
it again.
for it, man.
Question, because you brought up Exoprimal. This would be, and it would be such a Capcom thing to do. Do you think Exoprimal? So, remember, what was the name of it? Remember that Resident Evil multiplayer thing that came out, and it turned out to be Resident Evil 3's multiplayer? What was it?
Resistance. Again? Resident Evil Resistance. Yeah.
So, they showed Resistance. Oh, Resident Evil Resistance, multiplayer beta, blah, blah, blah. And then that was secretly Resident Evil 3's multiplayer under our nose all along. Resident Evil 3 remake.
I know where you're going with this, and it's out of control what you're about to say, what you're about to ask me.
How funny would it be if Exoprimal is secretly, same way as Resident Evil Resistance, is like the multiplayer for a Dino Crisis remake?
Dude, that would be so hype. If just imagine sometime this year, Capcom's like, okay, Resident Evil 4 is out, and guess what's coming out in 3 months? Dino Crisis, baby. And then they can say, oh yeah, remember when you thought this girl from the trailer of Exoprimal looked like the lead character of Dino Crisis? That's because it is her. What? And they're like, what?
Did you imagine? Imagine?
I actually cannot even imagine that. It would be such a hype, weird thing for them to do. And it would be such a wild development for them to announce the multiplayer spin-off, which looks nothing like Dino Crisis. It's got dinosaurs in it, but unrelated. And then just to sneak out the Dino Crisis as part of that.
That'd be hilarious.
I gotta say, I'm excited for Exoprimal, though. Like, it looks... I'm a big fan of Earth Defense Force, and it looks like an evolution of that. A lot of the playtests, it sounds like things... I've heard really good things about people who have gotten their hands on it. And it's just chaos. Thousands and thousands of raptors just dumping from the sky, and you're just murdering all of them. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see how that ends up being. Cool. And if I'm here for a Dino. At this point, Capcom can bring back any of its IP, and I'd be stoked. Doesn't matter how weird or Maximo. They brought back Super Ghouls and Ghosts. That was dope. That was amazing. At this point, anything that they touch, outside of Resident Evil RE-verse, I don't know what happened there. Anything they touch is fantastic. So Dino Crisis, it's time. Let's go. Let's do it.
Joe Munch is waiting.
Beautiful Joe.
He's waiting.
Let's go. One more question from Cal584. With the success of High on Life, do you think this could open the door for a potential Conquer sequel or remake? And who would be the best team for it?
Well, everyone is saying Squanch should do the Conquer sequel.
A lot of people are saying, now let Squanch do it now.
Yeah, but
I don't think they'd want to.
Conquer's made by Rare.
Conquer's made by Rare.
Conker's humor is very British. Squanch's humor is not only American, it's very
It's
what's the
like
word I'm after?
nihilistic modern niche. It's a very
Yeah.
specific brand of humor. It's a very modern, internet-driven
Yeah.
brand of humor.
It's not I don't know if Squanch again, I don't know enough about them as a studio, but I don't know if they could pull off British humor. I mean, for starters, because they're not British, but secondly, because even their American brand of humor is very unique and very
A lot of
not
it's
abstract, but
yeah, it is kind of
it's
abstract. It's unconventional. A lot of it's ad-libbed. You can tell it's just a bunch of dorks in a studio booth just like joking around
yeah,
with each other, which it works in a lot of ways. It's really
yeah.
funny, but that's not Conquer.
It's not Conker. That's
But what does Conquer
I mean,
even look like? If Conquer came out and had the same humor that it did back then, it's not going to land. It's they would need
mm,
to completely invent Conquer from the
they
ground
probably
up.
would.
You would need to find a
Mm.
radical team who says, "All right, let's do it." It would be. Did any of you watch the new Rocco's Modern Life? Netflix did a
The
Rocco's
new
Modern Life movie.
did they really?
And the movie was excellent because it basically picked up however many years it's been since and
Mm.
kind of talked about it was very like fourth wall-y and talked about the process of revisiting something after all that time and like how much the
Oh wow,
world has changed and how much comedy has changed. Like they would need to
Chip and
have
Dale
that.
did that.
Yeah. They would need to have that formula. Like go back
Mm.
to Conquer and make fun of how Conquer's humor was bad. All right. Can we it, it's like early South Park.
Well,
Hilarious for its time, groundbreaking in a lot of ways, but compared to how South Park evolved later on, early South
yeah,
Park
yeah.
comedy was pretty bad.
Oh
Pretty bad.
yeah, trying to watch those early episodes of South Park is very hard now.
Yeah, I went back
But you,
very recently, within the last 6 months, and watched the first 3 seasons of South Park, and man, as a kid,
yeah.
I was busting up laughing. As
Oh,
an
loved it,
adult,
loved it.
different.
Yeah,
So
it's not great.
that would be
But
my
you know what?
question
You
to
just had a
you.
great idea. You just had a great idea that I don't even think you realized on how Squanch could do Conquer, and
Have,
you don't even realize you did it.
make Conquer an old, grizzled guy who's lived
Just
through all
fourth
of
wall
it.
it,
Yeah, fourth wall it.
fourth wall it,
Make
and just be
Conquer
like,
a
you know
victim
what?
of cancel culture. Make Conquer the most.
I used to be British, and now I'm American. If you all, sorry guys,
Yeah,
I'm American now.
make him the most
Whatever.
unlikable scumbag in the world, and have that be like the driving force of the new Conquer. That's what I would want. In terms
Yeah,
of who would
maybe they
make
could
that,
just.
yeah, like you said, if they do it dark, if they just get dark and weird and fourth wall y with it, Squanch for sure. If they
Yeah,
want to
let them.
do silly, limited dialogue, limited story, I'd say Toys for Bob. Really, Toys for Bob can do any 3D platformer for me, and I think they would.
Double Fine.
Double Fine. People
Double
want
Fine,
Double
maybe.
Fine. Double Fine could do a really heady Conquer, but again, Tim Schafer, he's talked about Banjo. He's like,
Yeah, I
Rare,
know.
he's not doing it. I don't think he's doing it. But there's a way to bring it back. There's a way to bring Conquer back. It just needs to be done introspectively. You need to acknowledge what Conquer was,
Yep.
how it was a relic of that time, and how Conquer would exist in the modern world. I mean,
Yeah.
poop's funny, on a basic level, poop's funny, but that can't
Farts
be
will
the
always be funny.
yeah. Like we're as much as we've evolved as a society, farts, poop, pee, it's see, just saying those words, like I already got them. So you could do it. You could bring Conquer back. You could do some poop jokes and make it work, but you gotta elevate the poop jokes.
Yeah, that'll never not be funny.
Carlito asks, who is Squanch? Squanch is the team that did High on Life. It's Justin Roiland's development
Yes.
team, did Trover Saves the Universe. Highly recommend High on Life if you like dark humor.
It's a good game.
Fun.
A good
a lot
game.
Of fun. Nick.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's gonna do it. We got through all the community Q&A. We got through all of the topics. Before we wrap it up, is there anything else you want to touch on? Anything else you want to say to the lovely folks joining us?
Yeah, like I said at the start of the show, go to XboxEra.com. That's where you can find everything we do. What's the time? It's almost 8 a.m. Australian here. So in 2 hours, we are doing the Xbox Era podcast. So jump back onto YouTube in a couple of hours' time and come watch me do the 4th podcast in a 48-hour period that I am doing. So yeah, that's where you can check me out. Come back in another couple of hours, guys.
Absolutely. Support Nick's Gauntlet.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, absolutely, man. I know we've been talking about it for months. I'm glad, you had this month off so you could get up at, like I said, 5 a.m. Really appreciate you doing that. Really appreciate you hanging out. His camera's falling over. Oh my God.
Just went.
But appreciate you, man. Appreciate everyone who joins us live on YouTube and listens after the fact to the audio versions. Appreciate everything you do. I think that's it. I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of Xbox Chaturdays. So have an amazing weekend, and we will catch you next week. Take care, everybody.
Ciao for now.